Okay, Representative Adams? Here. Bailey? Bailey?
Second man's not here?
Second man doesn't seem to be present. Bordelon? Here. Casper? Chase?
Here.
DeSiller Fleming? Here. Frickman? Gustafson? Hanscom? Here. Katowski? Here. Lambert? Marley? Marshall? Martin?
Here.
Massett?
Here.
McDermott? Here. Melendez?
Here.
Mello Miller? Here. Merritt?
Here.
Monahan? Here. You moved. There you are. Newsom? Here. Oliver? Pasqualini? Perry? Here. Powers? Kay Powers?
Here.
Chino? Quinn? Richards? Here. Rogers? Here. Stanford? Here. Starkley? Here. Stevenson? Streeter? Irma? Here. Sorry. Streeter James?
Here.
Strode? Here. Washington?
Here.
Washington?
I couldn't make my voice.
My, that got me. Wells? White House? Whitney? Oh, he will be later. Eben?
Here.
We have 29 at roll.
Wait,
29?
I didn't get called. What happened to Starkley and Stevenson?
Hey, why aren't Starkley and Stevenson? No, I said Starkley, and you said here,
I didn't.
and I said Stevenson, and you didn't say anything.
I didn't hear.
So, all
I am
right,
here.
well,
I
are you here?
apologize.
Are you here?
I am here.
Now we have 30.
I apologize.
Though, right? You have Starkley not here?
No, he said he was here.
You're not in the same spot. All right, we have 30 members present. We do have a
Stevenson's here, so
quorum.
he's the 30th.
I did hear from Representative Frickman, Marshall, and Lambert that they would not be with us tonight. So there you go.
So we have 30.
30 present. So the first item on our agenda is the Planning and Development Services, and I believe Representative Chair Oliver of that committee is not here, so we're going to have Representative Newsom take over. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, 1046 is first, and then you can, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I can give you I have two agendas. So. That's fine. You can jump around as long as it says all the words.
So the first account tonight,
Yeah.
account 1046, Planning and Development Services, on page 135 of your budget book. So I'll start out by reading the committee minutes. The RTM Community and Development Services Committee met on Wednesday, April 24th. It was called to order at 6:35 p.m. at the Groton Senior Center to consider the committee accounts in the FYE 2020 budget. Members present were McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, and Newsom, who arrived 6:40 p.m., about 5 minutes later. Members absent, none. Quorum was declared. So, the order that the committee took the accounts in was not necessarily the one that we're doing them tonight, so I'm kind of jumping around in my minutes here. So I'll go by what,
He's trying to go by the agenda, not the minutes, and
so, for
for your comfort.
for account 1046, Planning and Development Services Committee, first motion for $1,403,555 was made by Representative Hanscom, seconded by Representative Perry. A second motion was made for $1,391,585 made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Hanscom. A vote on the second motion. 1 voting in favor, McDermott, 4 opposed, Strode, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 1 abstaining, Hanscom. Motion fails. Vote on the first motion. 4 voting in favor, Strode, Newsom, Perry, Oliver, 0 opposed, 2 abstaining, McDermott and Hanscom. Motion passes. And that's all I have for the minutes for planning. So, Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $1,391,585. No, I'm sorry, my apologies. John's like, $1,403,555 for account 1046, Planning and Development Services.
It sounded a lot like Bailey.
That was pretty good, whoever did that. That was very
Rita,
good.
James. Where are we?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over to the town manager.
So we have a motion on the floor for $1,403,555, and that's count 1046, made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative Streeter. Is there any discussion or questions? I think there probably should be some questions since there was not much in those minutes. Would anyone like to raise their hand? Because I will launch in. Representative Nello Miller.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I noticed in personnel services between 2018 and 19, it was an increase of 74,000, and then we have an increase of 65,000 between 2019 and 2020. Can you explain the increases in the personnel services?
Of course, a lot of that would be union contracts and then just other general pay increases detailed in the salary items on page 139.
On 139.
Yeah.
Okay, and then can you explain to me what for the financing, it's the building and related permits, how that goes into it all?
Good evening, John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development Services. So when we look at the financing plan, those numbers get finalized at the end of the year. The finance director could speak better to this, but that basically helps them set the tax rate. For example, this year, fiscal year 2019, we had originally estimated that our building permit fee revenue was going to be about $340,000. Our revenue is actually going to end up being over $500,000 this year because
So that's an increase of how much?
Of about 160, it could be $170,000.
And that's going right into the general fund?
Correct.
Wow, great job. All right, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Representative Washington.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Town Manager Burton, you said that the raises were due to union contracts.
Not all of them. The union, the bulk of the dollars in there would be union raises, but then there's, of course, non-union raises, too.
What jobs are union jobs?
I don't see, yeah, John would know much better than me.
The union jobs are, if you're looking at page 139,
Yes.
the Inspector 1 construction, the Planner 1, the Planner 2 neighborhood, Planner 2 land, Code Enforcement, Planner 1, assistant building zoning official, and the 3 office assistants, the OA2 positions. You'll notice it's only listed once, but when you look at the, under the personnel, that there's 3 positions for there.
So those are 6 positions you just listed?
No.
9, okay.
Maybe 10. Yes, 9. Yeah. Thank you.
I was curious, you know, having experienced the largesse of this department, what is the account where the water bottles and the cups come out of?
That would be out of, let me look here for a second. I believe that is out of our marketing materials. Hold on one second here. Promotional materials for trade shows, and account 5201.
So $30,795,000?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to go down and break out the, within each cost center, within 5201, within each cost center. I think we have about $2,000 set aside for promotional materials for trade shows.
Representative Washington, White House, sorry.
We're easily confused with each other.
What?
I said we're easily confused with each other, Washington and White House.
You know, just the first 2 letters or first letter.
The gray hair.
Yeah, that's,
We're getting punchy.
so, Mr. Reiner, a couple of questions for you. When did you join the town?
I've been here about 4.5 years.
Okay. And when you came here, what was the status of our various empty buildings, the schools and whatnot?
They were empty.
But was there any progress on marketing them, or how long had they been?
For example, the Mystic Education Center, I believe when I looked through old town council minutes from around the year I was born, the town was trying to figure out what to do with that building because it was underutilized then. The Sealy School had the Parks and Rec Department in there, but the town was looking at trying to move that out of there. Let's see, Colonel Ledyard School was, the city had a lease on it but wasn't really using it. We look at Pleasant Valley, just closed a couple of years ago. Mystic Education, Groton Heights had been closed for a number of years. People had ideas of what that property could be used for, but nothing was really happening with it. So I think the town didn't have a plan for how they could systematically market all of those properties and get new uses and new tax revenue into them.
And what's the status of those properties now?
I expect to have signed agreements on just about all of them from developers in the next 1 to 3 or 4 months.
All right. And do you have a
Not
ballpark-
Pleasant Valley, though. Not Pleasant Valley yet. I don't have the keys to that building. And Colonel Ledyard, we're putting an RFP out for that by July 1st. So Sealy School, we have interviews with developers next week. Very, very interested in the property. Mystic Education Center, we've been working with a preferred developer for months. It's taking a little bit longer because it's a state-owned property. Groton Heights, I think most people probably have heard at this point in time that Thayer Mahan, an existing business, what's that? Oh, yes, yeah. Thayer Mahan will be locating in that building, not closing up their other shop, but actually starting a new venture. Great business opportunity there. There's also a piece of property on Gold Star Highway that we, the town, received through tax foreclosure. I think I'll be taking something to the Cow in executive session in about 2 weeks and probably assign a purchase and sales agreement in June or July on that property for redevelopment.
And do you have a ballpark figure of all these properties that we're selling this year, how much town will be taking in? I know, obviously, you don't have anything signed yet, but just roughly.
The biggest way of how we're going to see new revenue is that these properties today are not on the tax roll.
Mm-hmm.
So Development estimates, on the high end, one particular development project that we're talking about, the developer's throwing a number around of about $150 million. Other projects are in the, $40 million range or so.
So would that increase the grand list by that amount?
Yes.
Okay, so that's adding $200 million,
Oh, and that's just two projects.
and then there's a number of others.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. And so there's a question about the marketing materials. Is part of this success due to the efforts of the staff going to events and using these marketing materials and the website? And
Very much so. We go to the ISCS conferences in Hartford, Boston. Paige and Sam Eisenbeiser have gone to the one in New York for the last couple of years. We get a table, we have a booth, we have a presence, we have marketing materials. 4.5 years ago, we didn't have those materials. So it took us time to actually build up that economic development infrastructure of the marketing materials, developing a standalone economic development webpage, coming up with nice marketing things to hand out, the water bottles, things along those lines. So people see it, they use it, they remember it.
and I believe Mr. Brunk said at one of the EDC meetings I quoted here at the RTM a couple months ago that a couple of years ago he'd be at the conferences and people would say, "Where's Groton? Is that in Rhode Island, or is that near Stamford?" And now people are like, "Oh, Groton, yeah, we know Groton," which is, awareness is the first step to purchase intent. So if people don't know where we are, they're not going to think about doing a $140 million project here. So yeah, $200 million of development seems to me like a pretty good return on a few $1,000s of marketing material. So I think you did a very good job. Thank you.
Representative Stevenson?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So I understand, excuse me, the school properties and the public properties. What's the long-term plan for the planning development services once those properties are all accounted for? What happens after that? Where do we look for? Where's this money going to end up going towards? Like, help me understand the projection of where this is going.
Sure. So one of the things I've tried to talk a little bit about with some of the marketing of these properties is that the first stage is the actual marketing of it. So our economic development team is focusing on that component, just on those properties. As things start going from signing purchase and sales agreements into the actual development plan review process, that can sometimes take a year per property, not looking out, each one's going to take a year, it's going to be 10 years, but there's a development approval process. From there, after they get through that and their financing, it then goes to the building division, and things are actually constructed, and some of these properties will take a year or two, some might take 3 to 5 years to actually build. These are only the public properties. At the same time, I really haven't talked a lot about the increase in private development opportunities that are happening. Sometime in the next month or so, I'm expecting a multifamily housing development of about 150 units on private property, not something that we are specifically marketing, but something along those lines. We've been putting a lot of focus and effort into the redevelopment of our downtown, working with property owners, trying to market those properties and getting outside investors to come and look at, the Big Y Center, Chris Regan's Plaza. If you look and see what happened with the Aldi's Plaza, just a few years ago, that was a pretty rundown plaza. I think they put well over somewhere around $10 million into the redevelopment of that property. In addition, there's always subdivisions, there's always applications that are coming through. A number of years ago, before I started working for the town, excuse me, our department was 19 or more in personnel, different inspectors. Right now, we're down to 15 with the activity that's been going on. As more development activity happens and EB's workforce keeps growing over the next 5 or 10 years, it's not just going to be the focus on our public properties. There's going to be a lot of focus and assistance with private properties, the development of those, and continuously working to market the town to attract new development.
This might be not something you're prepared to give, but could you give any sort of number of what kind of returns we see for every extra dollar we spend on this endeavor? Or
I can't give you a specific number on that, but since we have been putting more of an effort and focus on economic development as well as rewriting and streamlining our regulatory process. People are aware of it, and we're getting a lot more development interest. We have, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a business that's located in New London right now come to us and say, hey, we heard how easy you are to work with, and your regulations are a lot easier, and your taxes are a lot lower. We're moving to Groton. Many times, we've actually scooped up development proposals from other towns that we've seen have gotten denied for good businesses. Oh, come over to Groton, come talk to us. That takes staff time to reach out to these people. Having a website working for us all the time, that's something that we get a lot of hits, a lot of views on, and we're constantly reinvesting in that.
Thank you.
Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Can you explain account 5290, professional technical services?
Yes. Let me just find the details on that page.
I should say cost center, not account.
Okay, yeah. So that particular account, we have some funding for our economic development page, development and maintenance. We have money for the tax increment financing development program that we have. Once we have developers coming in with that program, we need to hire a financial expert to look through the kind of what's happening and what people are proposing. There's $10,000 set aside for that. There's also $30,000 set aside for town excess property management. A few years back, we had this as a CIP item. We thought it was best to take it out of the CIP and instead put it within the operating budget. So as we're marketing these public properties, we have to do appraisals. There's a state law that states basically any property that we sell, we have to appraise the property and post the appraisal of that property on the webpage within a certain period of time before the actual sale date. Each one of these appraisals costs about $3,000. Colonel Ledyard School, I'm having a phase 1 environmental assessment done on that property. That's around $2,500. If we need to do title work with our attorneys or surveys, these things add up quickly, and it helps developers identify what the potential pitfalls might be or not be. It hurdles that we can take out of the way certainly makes it a lot easier for the development process to happen on these schools that are being redeveloped. In a few years, once we're done with our public property redevelopment, that line item won't be in there anymore.
Thank you very much.
Representative Powers.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I've looked in our budget here for the year is 144 million plus, and this department here is actually growing our town. And we're spending about half of 1% of our budget on the growth of Groton. And I think that whatever we're doing here, if anyone drives around town or sees the growth and the development that's going on here, this is the department that we need to invest in. We need to invest highly in it because the businesses that are here, they support the schools. They lower our taxes the more business we have in our community. So whatever we can do to help them, I truly believe that this is the right thing to do. So I'd like to make a motion to move the number.
I won't accept it. Representative Kotowski.
Thank you. Now, for the other side of the story, as usual, I just have a list of concerns and questions, and I'll just lay out my list, and then you can go through them one at a time, okay? Of course, my first concern is about the 10% increase in the top 3 positions in this department. Another concern I have is regarding redevelopment. I'm just wondering about the empty storefronts on Route 1 and Route 12. Last year, I raised concerns about the amount of consultant fees that the planning department was accumulating, and you got back to me and we had emails about that. I was just wondering what the status is of the consultant fees for this year. And I also raised the concern last year about how it's taken 20 years to rewrite the zoning regs. You've only been here, I know, for 4.5, but even in 4.5 years, it seems like the zoning regs are taking a ridiculously long time to be rewritten. I'm also concerned about your attendance or lack of attendance at the planning meetings. And as Also, I've heard that you work from home, and I was just wondering how you can manage 15 people working from home. And my last thing is about Mystic Oral School, okay? The big reveal was supposed to be in March. It's May, and we still don't know what's happening. And personally, I tried to get involved in this 3 years ago, and I tried to get involved. I had a conversation with Paige Bronk for 2 years before you established the commission. By then, I was elected to the RTM, and I was still denied an opportunity to be on that committee. So we still don't know what's going on there, and the neighbors don't know. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
I'll try to go backwards. So the Mystic Oral School, we've been working on that project, and yes, it's taking a little bit longer, and as I said in my introduction, because it's a state-owned property. We don't control the sale of the property. We have not publicly released what that end result and project is going to be there because we don't have a signed purchase and sales agreement between the state and the developer. They will go through a very lengthy permitting process for what they propose out there. The committee that I think you're referring to was the Preferred Developer Selection Committee. That was made up of representatives from DECD, DEEP, Department of Administration from the state, and a few town representatives. It was not people from either the neighborhood or the public. It was a state-driven project that we were fortunate to be involved in. More news will be coming out on that soon. We had hoped that we would have had a signed agreement at this point, but we don't see that yet. These things take time. Working from home, I don't work from home. I work in my office. If there are days where people might say, oh, John's working at home, I might have been sick that day or had a sick kid, put in for sick time, and I'm still staying on top of my emails. If I go on vacation, ask my staff, ask John, I'm always reachable by phone. Weekends, nights, vacation, whether I'm in town or out of town. Attendance at planning commission meetings. I go to planning commission meetings when I feel my presence is necessary or if my staff feels my presence is necessary. There are usually at least 2 professional planners in attendance at the planning commission meetings as well as an administrative staff person. I don't think we need to have another person there just to have another person there. I've been focusing a lot of my time and attention going to the zoning commission meetings, working on the regulations, which is a much bigger project for us right now. Deb Jones is a spectacularly competent professional. I think one of the best planners in the state of Connecticut. I'm very happy to have her on my staff. And if she needs me at planning commission meetings, she'll ask me. I'll actually be at the planning commission meeting next Tuesday night, May 14th, working on tax increment financing, as well as the joint land use study project. And as time goes on, as the planning commission becomes the planning and zoning commission, I imagine my attendance at planning commission meetings will substantially increase. 20 years to rewrite the regs, and I've been here 4.5 years. Why haven't we gotten it done? The first 1.5 years to maybe 2 years when we were talking about regulatory reform here, some of the changes we were making, we were doing internal on staff time. And also a lot of that time I was talking about the need to rewrite our zoning regulations because they hadn't been rewritten in 30 years, asking for the money to actually be able to do it. Yes, these things take time. Our zoning is a very important thing that we don't want to just do very quickly with no concern for the future development of the town. I mean, as you rightly questioned about what's happening at the Mystic Oral School and Mystic Education Center, if we just adopted a new zone for that area in 2 weeks' time, I don't think you or your neighbors would be happy. And when we're looking at the entire town, this takes time, a lot of thought, a lot of debate on the behalf of the zoning commission, staff, as well as residents. We've been having a lot of public meetings on that. We meet twice a month on average with the zoning commission, and there's an incredible amount of time that goes into developing these. The public hearing for our zoning regulations will be June 19th if anyone's interested in attending. We have a special web page just for those zoning regulations if you want to look through them. I'm very happy with the product that's been developed. It is a longer product, but it gives clarity to people. Developers are looking for clarity and certainty when they're coming to a municipality for development. Consulting fees this year are actually incredibly low. I think within that account that Representative Newsom brought up, potentially $10,000 for financial analysis for tax increment financing. I think the number was $9,500 to assist in an analysis on the federal opportunity zones, which is a new program that does not impact local taxpayers' dollars, but looks at capital gains taxes and how it's not really something for developers, it's actually something for investors, hedge fund managers. How can they identify development opportunities to take their money that they would pay high capital gains on and invest in this opportunity zone? We were one of very few municipalities throughout the state of Connecticut to have an opportunity zone placed here. It's not a large area in town. It's around Gold Star Highway, Route 12, Military Highway area, heading up into that direction. And the redevelopment, the empty storefronts. So we did a quick windshield survey. We have about 1,500 businesses in town, and I think there are somewhere around 27 vacancies right now. That's a pretty low vacancy rate overall. We didn't go through the city of Groton, we went through the town, looking at Route 1, Route 12, Gold Star Highway. There's always turnover. I've had questions from people of why haven't we found a new business for the Lazy Boy? Well, they haven't even left yet. So
Still going out of business.
So they've been going out of business for a few months. They haven't left yet, and I don't know when they're leaving. We hope that the private market takes care of itself. I'd be surprised if that building doesn't have a new use in it within 6 months of when they finally do vacate. It's in a great spot. It's a good building. I don't know what the end use is going to be there. There are other vacant storefronts that we're working with developers now on possible demolitions, relocations. So a lot of things are happening around town.
Does that include the Bennies and the movie theater and many of the stores on Route 12? I just went down there. It was
Yes. So those all fell into the 27 number. The movie theater and the Big Y Plaza, we have spoken to that development, the owners of that development plaza numerous times. A couple of years ago, the property almost sold. We were working with the potential buyers, and the deal fell apart. We've approached the owners of that plaza with possible uses for that movie theater, and it didn't happen. We cannot force people to lease out their property or to sell their property. Sometimes people ask numbers which are exorbitant, and I can't force them to, developers to pay more than what they feel fair market value is or not. And we're not in the position, we're not looking forward to or not proposing to do any eminent domain to start making these things happen. That's not a word that's in my vocabulary for economic development and the planning that we're doing right now. So the Benny's Plaza, so I was talking to somebody who spoke with Chris Regan, and it sounded like he actually had a user to take up that entire Benny's building. So there are things that are happening.
All right, Representative Streeter.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I guess out of a personal interest in decorum, Mr. Reiner, I'd like to apologize for a couple of the questions that you were asked. I think they were inappropriate. They should have gone through the town manager if there was a concern about that. That being said, could you provide us with an update on the status of the William Seeley School and the Chipperini property?
Sure. So the William Seeley School, we went out to RFP. We've been working with an economic development marketing firm on that property. It's taking a little bit of a different process than we have with our other projects. We received some very good, very competitive proposals. It's actually, it's going to be a very difficult selection process because each one of them that we've received is really good. We have interviews set up for next week, and from there, hopefully after 1 or 2 rounds of interviews, we'll be able to pick a preferred developer, take that to the town council, and work with them, establishing a purchase and sales agreement and how the transfer of the property would happen. Then there'll be a public outreach process, getting the neighbors involved, going through the planning and zoning. We tried for a long time to work with the abutting property owner, and we weren't getting anywhere. There was no traction, so we decided to take a step back from that, market this property on our own. And all of the development applicants who have come in, all the proposals, are very aware of this great redevelopment property sitting just down the hill from them. And all the proposals will be encouraging them to leave options for connection between the two should that property become available for development.
Thank you.
Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you so much for coming out tonight and discussing the development section. It's great to see some things changing. Obviously, there's always room for improvement with anything. With that, we keep talking about how EB is going to bring in a ton of jobs, and which they will. But how are we working to advertise to make sure we're attracting those people to stay here? For example, I understand that the city is this kind of a separate entity, but it is Groton, and they have their own development. But I hope there's some unification working with them, because when you come off the highway, there's no defined point, beginning, middle, or end of Groton. There's no center of town. There's no common green. There's no walking district except for our small piece of downtown Mystic. And for newcomers coming into town, when you get off the highway as that new person coming into EB for that interview, and you come from Providence Airport, like my friend's son did, and you get off and they don't see anything. And the city is a wonderful place to live, but it does look old on that stretch there. And we got to find a way to market and target those people coming in. We can say we're going to have 3,000 more jobs coming in. It doesn't mean they're going to live in Groton. I hope they do. But how can we market that? We have a strip of Mystic on that side, and but not everyone picks the Groton side of Mystic either. So that's my first thing. Also, I feel like there should be a plan with when buildings close in this town, when schools turn buildings over back to the town. So my understanding, as I'm learning, is the town builds a school, the town turns it over to the Board of Ed, and then the Board of Ed, when they're done, turns it back over to the town. It seems as if we need a much more a process that's more defined, more detailed, and slated so that buildings aren't sitting as long as they are. That seems to be, it's not the problem with vacating the building necessarily, or probably selling it. There seems to be a hang-up somewhere between the Board of Ed and the town, and working somehow with some defined guidelines as to, from the time you vacate the school, that this building will be turned over in a certain amount of time. That, to me, so far, what I'm hearing, seems to be the lagging. I went to a liaison meeting recently, and it was discussed, and everybody was here, and it was the heating costs that they didn't turn it over yet, and robotics is in there. It just seems that we can define that a little bit better. As well as our welcome packages, making sure we're targeting the military coming in. As a former military spouse myself, and being from this town, from seeing it from both ends, it'd be nice to have a package that came in that went over the resources and why we'd want to live here, and also defining the schools in your welcome package. I've seen your economic development package, but I haven't seen anything talking about our brand new schools that we're building. I think that would be a good talking point to add into that package. So I look forward to seeing where this goes, and once again, I just think that we have to have some defined middle, beginning, and end of this town, some common green, somewhere when you get off the highway you say, I'm in Groton. Right now we do not have that, and I think we need to be able to attract people. And getting off any of the exits that I've been off of, they're not attractive. Thank you.
Representative McDermott? Oh, sorry, sure.
Thank you,
One
Madam
minute.
Moderator.
We're just going to hear from the town
I was just
manager.
going to say a couple
Sorry.
comments real quick on that. Just to mention, Mayor Hedrick and I meet regularly with EB to talk about what their needs are, what are they looking at, what are their people looking at for housing. I've been keeping that. We usually meet with Maura Dunn, the Vice President of Human Resources. I just met with her a couple days ago. I keep her I keep her updated on what's happening with us so that she can relay that to HR people so they can relay it to incoming people. And as we get brochures and other things together, we'll be distributing to them. And then, of course, the Mayor Hedrick and I get together regularly, too, to discuss working together. Our planning department works with their planning department very closely. Same thing with their economic developer. And then in terms of the properties and Board of Ed, Dr. Grenier and I get together. We talk about every month. We talk about it regularly. We can't enforce policy on the Board of Ed for these properties. It's totally under their control once handed over to them. But we and Dr. Grenier do discuss it and talk about the need to get it turned over to us more quickly. The other hang up, it was not a utility issue with Pleasant Valley. It is figuring out what to do with robotics, but it's also all that, they have that storage building, trying to figure out that, and they had kicked around whether they might need to hold on to a building for a year or two till something else is available. And I think at that same meeting, I heard they later said, well, Board of Ed's gonna have to discuss and kind of review their needs, and then we'll work with them from there. So.
Thank you. Representative McDermott.
Thank you. A couple of weeks ago, our beautification committee for the town initiated a cleanup of Route 1 and a bit of Route 12. And we had 50 or 60 people show up to do that. And it's quite amazing how much trash was picked up. I mean, it was a mountain of trash. It was, my wife and I did about 3 miles of that, in fact, by ourselves. But that brings me to the point that it really looks a little cleaner if you know what you're looking at now compared to what it was before. And I've been a supporter of yours for a long time, ever since you got here, and your efforts and your staff, and I think you've done a pretty good job. My question is, do you think it's within your purview to make the town more attractive, to maybe hold some of these people that are coming to work for us at Electric Boat and make the town more attractive? You know, that particular area, Route 1, Route 12, has long been a problem. And I don't even know if anything can be done about it. But I'm curious, do you think that that's part of the process of economic development along with the business development?
So can we help beautify some of these areas? Yes.
Exactly, yes.
Through the redevelopment process and for sites along that roadway, yes, I think we can. But some of it also falls outside of, my purview. When we talk about what we need to have the beautiful Groton that we're looking for, are the streets being swept enough? Do we have great parks and rec programs? All these things kind of fall into it. Good trash pickup. I think a couple of years ago, the Parks and Rec, some of their budget was cut, and the building, the maintenance of like the flower pots out in front of the town hall annex aren't being taken care of anymore. There's more weeds around, and you see the same thing happening with businesses as they struggle. Those might be things that, all right, how can we get more people involved? I think it's spectacular that you had 50 or 60 people show up to that cleanup. Are there ways we can get people involved of beautifying or planting flowers in some of these areas? The low-hanging fruit might be, all right, we can do some of that on public property. We'd want to work with Public Works and the town manager, but then we don't have to ask necessarily people for permission to go out on their property. And little things like that start becoming contagious.
Exactly. All right, thank you.
Just to mention, I've struggled with that in terms of shortage of staffing in Public Works to do, and just money. We did end up repainting the front of the building. I couldn't do the whole building at that time. It's got to be a separate CIP, but there's not much funds for doing anything extra. It's really down to the base. I would be interested in trying to grow that part of the budget just a little bit so we can do a little bit more, keeping up our properties a little nicer.
Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, John Burt and John Rayner. I respect where we live. If there's a business that's going out, please do not make fun of it. Thank you very much. I respect that. Right? Thank you.
Representative Washington.
Two things. Would you mind going over your goals for 2020? And the second thing is, I will vote for any of your budget if you bring Trader Joe's to Groton.
I'm amazed how many times we hear that from people.
I'd love to have a Trader Joe's down here too. It would save me a trip up to Warwick every couple of weeks.
Not the carpool.
Yeah. But that's something, when people ask us, when are we getting a Trader Joe's? When are we getting a Whole Foods? We've been working with the city of Groton a lot on developing and making sure we have a consistent message as we market Groton and we market the region. One of the things that often becomes difficult is because there are so many cities and towns or some of the boroughs in this region, when development firms, they look at numbers and they look at how many people live in an area or live in a town, and there's often confusion of numbers of, well, how many towns are around here and what is the true population and how do they catch that data? Also, sometimes companies look at driving distance. So Paige cold called a particular really nice resort-based hotel and trying to bring it here to Groton because we had heard they were looking around in Connecticut, and spoke to the gentleman, and he said, well, you know what, that's a great area. We really like Mystic, but we have another facility that, you know, our average customer drives 4 hours to get here. And we have another one that's, you know, less than 2 hours away. So thanks for reaching out to us. So some of these particular, you know, places, a Whole Foods, a Trader Joe's, I don't know exactly what their model is. Unfortunately, unless we have the population density, they're looking at, all right, how much of a population center is there within a driving distance? The goals for the year, sorry. Honestly, I think our biggest goal is to continue working on the excess property redevelopment. That's number one. The public hearing for our zoning starts June 16th. I need to get that finished up before July 31st, which is when the zoning commission becomes no more and it becomes a planning and zoning commission. Once that is done, we still have some reformatting of the document to do, as well as continuing to get the word out that, hey, we finished this regulatory overhaul, our process is streamlined. That's something we need to help working on. There was a comment about what are we doing to market our new schools. That's something that we've been talking about internally, and we're trying to develop some marketing sheets. There's over $300 million being invested in new schools in this town, between the town schools and the new Grasso Tech. That is a great selling point for us. We get that. We talk to the developers that are coming here about those items, and they're blown away that, wow, why haven't I heard more about this? So that's something we know we need to get the word out more about. And frankly, over the course of the next year, we're going to be dealing with a lot of development applications. Because of all these schools, the amount of multifamily housing we're going to see in this town is going to, that's going to be going through the development process is going to be pretty substantial.
Are they going to be affordable housing?
They will be market rate housing. I think a lot of it is going to be, some of it I like to refer to as workforce housing. None of it's going to be affordable with a capital A. I think of affordable housing as like deed restricted housing is affordable housing with a capital A, as opposed to affordable housing to, you know, average workers, not deed restricted, is affordable housing with a lowercase a. Right now, we have 21% of our year-round housing stock as that qualifies for that large capital letter A affordable housing. We need more market rate housing. We need more housing to attract millennials. We also need more housing so that people that want to age in place as they're getting older, the baby boomers, want to stay in Groton, but maybe they don't need that single family house anymore and they want to downsize or keep the same size but something with less maintenance. Those are some of the markets, as well as that growing workforce for EB. We're trying to attract the people, the increase in the jobs, as well as the jobs that are turning over at EB. Right now, we know 80% of the workforce for our entire town doesn't live here. We want to change that number. That's a big goal of what we're working on over the course of the next year.
Representative Massett, did you have your hand up? I saw you holding the microphone, but I didn't see you raise your hand, so.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. In the interest of time and moving along, could we limit discussion and conversation to budget items? I think it might be a great idea for Mr. Reiner and his staff to maybe do a couple of workshops. But rather than getting bogged down, could we just move on? Thanks.
That's good. I think part of the problem is that their minutes were a little they really lack any background, and so we have to fill that in here, unfortunately. There was nothing in those minutes except two numbers that were moved and voted on. So that's why people are interested. This is a big, part of our town, and I think you're doing due diligence, but you are correct, Representative Massett. So I have, what? Yes.
Second it.
I have a few people who are speaking for their second time. So Representative Stevenson, did you want to speak?
Just real quick. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Enterprise zones. Is this involved in that? And I know town manager has talked to me a little bit about this. That's mostly on the state side. But is there anything on your end involved with the enterprise zone designations?
Yes, Paige Bronk, my Economic and Community Development Manager, is the Enterprise Zone Coordinator for Groton. We do a fair amount of work with that. Again, maybe just in light of time, that's something I'm happy to talk to you about offline.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I would
you.
like that, thank you.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I'm happy to either come to the RTM and give an overview and answer questions anytime, or hold an open house. If I can get 10 or 15 of you or more to come by one day or one evening, I'm happy to spend hours talking about all the things we're working on.
Thank you. I do want to follow up on Representative Massett's thought, so please limit your comments directly to budgetary items, questions or therefore. So Representative Bordelon? Representative Newsom?
You answered my question, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to vote then? I don't see any more hands. All right, we have a number on the floor, $1,403,555 for account 1046. All in favor? You missed the second. Your other second man behind. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Is that an abstention? Okay. That motion passes 31 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. The ledge policy is the next one.
There's one.
Oh, no, it's a CIP, you're right.
Right. So the next account will be CIP 8C, Gateway Wayfinding Sign Project, on page 241 of your budget book. So CIP 8A, or 8C rather, Gateway Wayfinding Sign Project. Motion was made for $70,000 by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Newsom. 6 voted in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, Madam Moderator, I'll make a motion for $70,000 for CIP 8C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for CIP 8C for $70,000. Representative Newsom made it. Representative Bailey seconded it, and that is for Gateway Finding Sign Project.
Right, and I would ask the town manager to please explain why the $45,000 was taken out by the town council.
Yeah, originally there was an intent of using community development block grant dollars, and we ended up subsequently finding out that you can't directly use that money for that. So.
Representative Stevenson, did you?
Oh, I guess I'll ask another question. Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Madam Moderator. How many signs is this roughly? Do we? Because it's a big number, so I'm trying to understand what we're getting out of it.
Sure. So I don't have a specific number of signs. We have a wayfinding signage program that we have developed, and what we need to do is first identify which areas we want to put, and these aren't your typical street signs. These are more larger wayfinding signs to actually start announcing places, directing people around. So, you know, one member of the RTM before asked about, you know, her son flew in, or a friend of a son flew in, got to town and didn't quite know where the center of town was, didn't know where to go. I mean, I think of coming off of exit 88 on 95 if I'm traveling south, and I get to the bottom of the hill and, all right, there's not great signage. And then I, you know, take a left, drive down 117 south, hit 1 and 117. There's an old rundown town sign there, if you walk up to that sign and really look at it, it needs some love and it needs some help. It actually needs a new sign. So looking at wayfinding signage in areas like that, as well as whether it's some of this, the funding we're looking at for this, so $20,000 of that, we expect to be fundraising, working with some businesses and business organizations within the town, targeting signs specific down to Mystic, and then the $50,000 would be from the Economic Development Assistance Fund. So it wouldn't be anything coming from
The question was how many signs, though, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay, but
didn't
I don't
quite
have
hear.
an exact number of signs for you.
70,000
Oh.
actually doesn't buy a lot.
Yeah. So recently, there was the sign in Mystic that was vandalized. With something, an investment like this, is there any kind of insurance or anything on these items, or?
That wasn't actually vandalized. It just deteriorated over the years. It got really rotted out. We were redoing both of those, but
Okay.
it wasn't that it was vandalized.
I apologize. But in the case of vandalism, are these insured items, or are these going to be something we have to maintain?
Well, they'd fall under our property insurance, but there's a $10,000 deductible, so it wouldn't likely be, you're not likely to have a $10,000 sign. So if somebody vandalized it, we'd probably have to fix it.
Thank you.
Representative Monahan?
Madam Moderator, thank you. It seems to me we've already had a discussion about this in the previous conversation. This is exactly what people are asking for. Let's vote for it.
Representative Richards?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just had one question. In the CIP, it says the signage plan will be completed by the end of 2018. Was it completed?
Yes, it was. So this CIP was put together, I think we started it around in November of 2018. Since that time, the signage plan has been completed and it was accepted by the town council.
Okay. And since you are listing these funds here, does that mean if we vote for the $70,000 that money would be brought back to the town through these grants that are listed here, the funds?
So one of them, we're expecting $20,000 in fundraising efforts. If we are not able to fundraise that, then that money doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no more hands in the air, I think we're ready to vote. Representative Washington?
Do you mind giving us a copy of that plan?
Sure.
I don't think I ever saw that plan, the
Uh,
signage plan.
Yes, if I can't email it to you because of the size of the document, we can send you a link that you could view it and download it.
Representative Whitney?
Just have a quick question. What's the anticipated lifetime of these signs?
Yeah, for the glam last night.
I think we'd be looking at signs that are very durable and last, I don't know, in the 10 to 15 year range at a minimum.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for $70,000 for CIP 8C for Gateway Wayfinding Sign Project, aptly named. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes 32 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you.
Next account is account 1001, legislative policy, on page 59 in your budget book. I'll read the minutes. Account 1010, executive management. Oh, I'm sorry, 1001, legislative policy. Motion for $40,400 was made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Strode. 5 voted in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining, 1 absent, Newsom. I was a little bit late to the meeting, did not arrive in time for that vote. Is there any question or any discussion on the meeting minutes?
Yeah, what happened? All right, go for it.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $49,400 for account 1001 legislative policy.
Second.
All right, we,
Glad you're here, Bailey.
all right. Oh,
49,400.
is it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sorry. All right. We have a motion on the floor for $49,400 for account 1001 legislative policy made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Bailey. Is there any discussion or questions on this? I have a question. I see the Jabez Smith house is one of these items, and it's $3,000. And I have two prongs. One is there a caretaker in that house now? And number two is, I can't believe that keeping up that house, which is like 300 years old, only costs $3,000. So I'm just curious about it.
Sure. And this is for mostly for fuel oil.
Okay.
And a little bit for postage if they do any events. It's our Public Works actually does a lot of work there out of their budget for that building. This is just for the fuel oil and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
And there is no caretaker.
He left, Mike.
Right. But the Jabez Smith committee oversees it, and they check in on it and kind of have oversight besides our Public Works coming there to do things.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to go through a couple quick things on here, just since there's not really any notes. Most of the biggest thing in this budget is that $31,500 for professional development training. That's actually town council's dues for the CCM, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, our advocate in Hartford for legislation, that type of thing. They also put on trainings for free for us, that type of thing. That's $30,500 of that, so the bulk of this budget's really that. There's $10,000 in the budget for the Thames River water taxi, and then just a few other small things. So mostly CCM and the water taxi.
Yeah. How much is the water taxi part of that?
10,000.
10? Does New London contribute 10,000 too?
I'm not sure. City does, but I'm not sure what New London does.
Okay. Representative Washington.
That was my question about the town council.
Got it. Representative Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Moderator. Thames River water taxi. Are they asking for funding?
Yeah, we've been doing it for, what, I don't know, 3 years or so.
Well,
they get a big grant from the state, and then that doesn't cover it all. But, of course, they collect fees, but that doesn't near cover it. They get some money from the state, and then the city of Groton, us, we put money in to keep it going. And
I think perhaps, is that something that the town could function without funding?
I mean, you'd have to have funding for upkeep of the boats, the staff to run it. I mean, so,
I understand.
Yeah, and it doesn't generate enough money to run on its own.
Understood, but that's sort of kind of like a business, and the town can actually function without that service. Is that correct?
Please say that again.
The town can function without the Thames River water taxi. Is that correct?
Sure, it's not a town function. It's a request similar to what we get from other outside agencies.
Is that is there a possibility to deny that request?
It certainly could be denied, but then I'm not sure if they could keep operating. And
well, that's fine, sure. But the town has to function correctly, and with that mentality, I request the moderator perhaps bring it to the body as a vote whether we should fund that part of the function or not.
I would suggest just making a motion for $10,000 less if you wanted to do that, and use that as your rationale.
Say again?
If you want to cut that out, I would suggest making a motion for $39,400.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I agree with that motion that you...
I didn't make it.
No.
Because I don't agree with that.
Hey, I need some help a little bit, okay? Hey.
For the purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion for $39,400 for account 1001.
You get to second.
And just for a little more information, you know, there's of course the Thames River Heritage Park. That's many entities, including the City of New London, us, City of Groton, and others working together to try to promote that whole corridor. You've got the TRIP, the Thames River Innovation Place activities going. As things grow, and as we've talked about having parks and other things, interesting items for this area, this is considered one of the more interesting items and has a potential to grow. We're going to get the new dock in at the sub-museum, that it'll be able to connect there for visitors. So I think given time, it might grow into something more significant, so it might be a little premature to cut it at this point.
So let me just open the floor. We do have a second amendment, first amendment to our motion on the floor for $39,400 made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative Bailey. Representative Stevenson, I have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm just confused. Why is this item under this body? I don't understand that. Can it not fit anywhere else? What's the rationale for putting it with these items?
I don't know if it was like this when I got here. So you got to have it someplace, and it was really considered a town council. Request came to the town council. There was no other particular. I don't know why it doesn't go into like outside agencies.
Yeah.
So I can't explain. And I don't know if Cindy has any background on it for why it's chosen to be here, but. But once things are established, once we start moving around, we tend to get negative feedback on, sleight of hand. So once it's in a spot, we tend to like to keep it in a spot. Do you have any background on it?
I believe the water taxi had come twice before and asked for funding, but a couple of years ago it was decided to put in a line item in this function for initiatives. So it was not only just for the water taxi, but for that who has asked and received the funding in the past. But this was thought to be, since it, as the town manager said, it came to the council asking for the funding. So it is just initiatives, but it will be for the water taxi for this year.
So the full $10,000 is just for the water taxi then? So
Yes.
even though that's what the item's for, the
Right.
full amount is for the water taxi?
Right, that's what they requested, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Representative Bailey may be unaware just of exactly what the genesis of this thing was some time ago. We wanted to put together a program whereby the city and the town and New London could get together and promote the businesses on both sides of the river. It's been a long, hard sell to do that because there isn't a lot in the city when they dock over there. Besides, they pull in right next to the sewer plant, and that probably doesn't help things either. But it's the kind of a program that really is on a shoestring now. I mean, $10,000 is really nothing compared to what the boats cost. They were gotten at a pretty good rate, and all of the volunteers that have promoted this thing with their time. It's really been an effort that probably is going to take a few years to come together and generate what we want to see happen. But I think it's part of our economic development, frankly. I don't know what the attendance has been, but I've been on that boat, and if anybody hasn't been on it, it's really quite a nice deal. So I would recommend that we keep that $10,000 in there. It's going to take a while to put this together so that it realizes what we want, but nonetheless, I think it's part of our economic development. I'd like to see it stay.
Mr. Burt would like to say something.
To just add in too, we're working with them on using our, on the off time, our senior buses to pick people up when they dock in certain events, at least this summer, and be able to take them to different venues or businesses in town. So, it'll be even more growing the economic development aspect of it.
Representative Bailey. Did you have your hand up, Representative Bailey?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I'm not going to argue with anybody. You know, if we want to promote businesses, that's fine. I think the taxpayers should have the choice on that and not be a quick pro. And thank you very much.
Representative Bordelon.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I also want to disagree with another representative that spoke about it being an asset to the town and the city. I think it does promote economic development. I've used it several times. I do agree that Groton side does need some more economic development, but hopefully with time it will. But I sure enjoy taking it over to New London. And if you haven't, it's great for Sailfest. It's the best transportation over there with no traffic. I think it's a great asset, and I think eventually they'd like to have more stops along the waterfront, hopefully the Nautilus down the road. I don't know if that will ever go through or not because of the security, but I think eventually, hopefully, Thames Street will come along, and I think this is a nice way to travel across the water. So I hope that it stays, and I'm in full support of it.
Thank you. Representative Streeter.
Thank you, Madam. I guess I'm going to piggyback on the town manager, Representative McDermott, and Representative Bordelon. The Heritage Park, actually, the concept started in 1988. And it just a few years ago is when we actually got to have it in operation. The main intent of this is to bring attention to Groton and New London. It's an economic development driver. It's also what we just discussed in economics. How do we bring attention to Groton? That's one way to bring attention to Groton. You just don't drive down Thames Street and say, oh, this is pretty. You get on this boat, and they will describe the activities on the water, the properties on the water that are attractive, that you might be interested in developing either industrial, business, or residential. Then you get off the boat and you look at the activities on the street, and that's the driver for economic development. How can we increase the activities on the street? Same with New London. That's why New London also contributes $10,000 a year. I would certainly be against the figure of $39,400. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Merritt.
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm going to go along with the support for the $49,400. I'm very enthused to see that the subbase is throwing in with a dock at this point in time. It was a hard battle to get them to get involved because of the base security, and I think they've worked that out. And I think that was a major point of this water taxi when it all started.
Representative Wells.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I had a chance to speak to Scott Bates, the chairman of the Connecticut Port Authority. I was at the event where the governor was announcing great plans for the pier and the state pier in New London. And I said, you know, over there in Groton, we have a waterfront, and it's the other side of the river. And he said, we have plans for that side of the river. And there's also a tax incentive finance district on Thames Street. And they're holding on to some of the old pilings because they plan to develop them. They rip them out, they'd have to provide, it would be more difficult to put dockage and back in again. And I talked to the mayor, and the mayor said they've got plans to improve and provide docks on the waterfront. So, and we really don't, I support the $49,400. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Rogers.
Hearing no substantive support for $39,400, I'd like to make a motion to move the question.
We have a motion to move the question made by Representative Rogers, seconded by Representative Perry. All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention.
We have 32 people here.
27 in favor.
27 in favor,
4 to
4
1.
opposed, and 1 abstention.
So that passes, 27 in favor, 4 opposed, and 1 abstention. So we have a motion on the floor for $39,400. All in favor of that, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Please raise your hand. Any abstentions? That motion fails. 1 in favor and 31 opposed, no abstentions. We have another number on the floor, $49,400. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? That motion passes. 31 in favor, 1 opposed, no abstentions. Thank you.
Next count is count 1006, legal services, page 69 of your budget book. Count 1006, legal services, motion for $297,500 made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Perry. 6 voting in favor, McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $297,500 for account 1006, legal services. Wait until I finish.
Healthy competition is good.
After I finish.
All right, we have a motion on the table for account 1006, which is legal services for $297,500 made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Bailey, I believe. Is there any, Representative Newsom?
Yes, can you please explain what the special attorney line item is for?
Sure. Of course, if I can just quick, I'll go through the 4 cost centers real fast. Sure. Well, I guess really 3 that have any money in them. The town attorney is pretty self-explanatory. That's the bulk of our legal work. Besides all, the bulk of our department questions go through there. If you guys ask me to look up something, it goes through there. We have 3 union contracts under negotiation this year, and also we're going to be, for the first time in many, many years, looking at the pension agreements this year. They haven't been touched in a long, long time. So there's a lot of work lined up there this year. Special attorneys, when you bring in someone not with our town attorney's firm, that's who we have. We have an outside group right now working on the Balfour Beatty, looking at that tax issue. So that's what that is. And then and they've already been engaged and are actively working on things for that. And then general support is the tax foreclosure, marshal fees, deed research, that type of thing. A lot of that is reimbursable once you sell off property on that portion.
Representative Newsom?
So none of the fees here are for, we talked the other night about in Public Works about the new legislation possibly coming down from the state or from DEEP about reducing our bulky waste. None of this money is going to that effort, right? They had a separate.
No, that's out of theirs, right.
So just to clarify that, so the jump from 171 in FY 2018 for town attorney fees to 227 this year, because that seems kind of large to me, that's because of Balfour BD and?
No.
I'm sorry.
Every year is different depending on how many union contracts you have.
So it's the union contracts that
it
drive
would have been
that, okay.
budgeted higher originally, but it came in, it was just a good year. Some of the snow, some years things come in, better. It's so hard to predict. We have so many questions that come up during the year. It's just really hard to predict. Okay. We just look at an average about what we usually spend.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor for $297,500, legal services, account 1006. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes, 32 in favor, none opposed. Thank you.
The next count is account 1010, executive management, page 72 of your budget book. Count 1010, executive management, motion for $301,632 made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Hanscom. 6 voted in favor, McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Is there any discussion on those meeting minutes? Seeing none, Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $301,632 for account 1010 Executive Management.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for account 1010 Executive Management, $301,632, made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative Bailey. Are there any questions on this one?
I would like to point out it has dropped because of one position being dropped. Would also have some savings and benefits too that don't reflect in this budget.
So was that assistant town manager, was that an independent person? I thought that Mr. Zagami had taken it over.
He's the assistant town manager, only 10% of his time. That's built into this, $10,000 of this is for his time. That was Nikki Brezhnian. She was the assistant to the town manager. She's a full-time position for this department. She retired last summer, I forget which month, August I'm thinking, and we did not refill that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of $301,632 for account 1010 Executive Management, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries, 32 in favor. Thank you.
Next account is 1007 Regional Agencies on page 176.
So I believe we are going to take these guys one at a time. Is that correct, Representative Newsom? The town council, according to Ms. Landry, voted on the total figure. But I'll let you go with your minute. I thought it was funny. I just did.
So in the minutes, we have, wait a minute. 1007, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I think I was looking at, what was I looking at?
1007?
Legal services.
Yeah, and if you want, I would just
Yeah,
refer you guys
107.
to Appendix A as well, because there's more supporting information there.
So, actually, the motion is not the one that I gave you. The one for 1007, I'm getting kind of mixed up between minutes and the
Oh, sorry, I didn't put
agenda.
any, you didn't give me a motion yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 1007, regional agencies. Motion for $134,239 made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Hanscom. 6 voting in favor. McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. So I would like to place a motion on the floor for $134,239 for account 1007, regional agencies.
Well, I think we have a motion on the floor for $134,239, and this is for regional agencies, account 1007, made by Representative Newsom, and actually seconded by Representative Hanscom. So, again, look at Appendix A if you wanted any information. I did, if you wanted any, I guess we would just rely on you if we have questions. I do have a question on the seat bus. I know, and I think I asked it, but I don't have it recorded, unfortunately. I know last year when we did the budget, Route 11, which is the one that goes through Groton and particularly right through by Avery Point, was going to be cut. The service to that was going to be cut. Was that cut, or has it been reinstated, or what's the status of Route 11, the bus 11, excuse me?
Still, I had reached out to the director. He said stable, no, it's still the same, no plans, no changes planned for the next year.
Thank you. Any questions? No, we got it all out earlier. All right, well, we do have a number on the floor for $134,239, and this is for Connecticut, Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments, the sector, which is a southeastern, it's like the, sorry, I shouldn't say it. It's like the business district. I don't know what all the acronyms. The other one is the Transit Authority, and the other is the probate court. So that's what you're voting on, since no one's asked. And we have the justice here. Representative Washington?
How much do the other towns contribute to the probate court?
We have Judge Keppel here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Greetings. Thanks. I know that Stonington contributes, I think, well, there's 80,000 people in the district, 4 towns, Stonington, North Stonington, Ledyard, and Groton. And
That's 3 towns.
what's that?
Stonington,
North Stonington, Ledyard,
Oh,
and Groton.
Stonington, and North Stonington, sorry, I
So
didn't hear that.
it's basically the burden. So Groton represents half of the population and half of the contribution, and the others contribute proportionally. There's a state statute that requires the towns to provide what ends up being a small portion of the operation of the court, basically to host the court. And because it's a regional court, that's spread across the 4 towns. 85% of the courts, the whole probate system is paid for by fees that are generated by users of the court. If I may, I just want to thank you for your support and thank you for, in particular, for the continued great work Groton does as the host community to our court. We love being in Groton. The town hall staff couldn't be nicer. So people were concerned when we went to in 2010 to a regional court. Each of the 4 towns previously had their own court, so there was some concern about how this would work out. It's worked out remarkably well. Saves about just consolidation from 117 courts to 55 courts, making a number of courts regional, has saved at least $4 million a year. Plus, I won't bore you, but the courts save the state taxpayers just, we believe, literally hundreds of millions of dollars, because one of the functions that people don't think about, because they think that all the probate court does is estates, decedents' estates, but we do conservatorships and guardianships, and in those roles, we're every day across the state linking people in need with a conservator or a guardian that keeps people from going into foster care, because we give grandparents custodial rights, and we also, through the conservatorship, a lot of people who would otherwise be institutionalized are able to stay in the community with the support of the conservator. So we also, as I've mentioned before, in the decedents' estates, sometimes one of the creditors of the estate is the town or in the towns. So we play this, I won't say it's a central function, but we end up playing sort of a contributory function in helping the town collect its taxes by making sure that the estates meet all their obligations. I also editorially will add, since I have the floor, sometimes it's hard for you all, because you live with it every day, to recognize you don't have a nice town here or a fine town. This is a great town, Groton. This building, the school system, the recreational services. I'm honored to serve on the Youth Services Advisory Board, and with Marge and a number of great people from various services, Groton and private sector services who serve the youth. It's just extraordinary. I mean, this is just mind-blowing. I live in a town that has a little less than half Groton's population, and it's being a bit blasphemous as a loyal Stonington Bear, but we don't have half of the services and resources and capabilities or 45% of what Groton has. So what you all do, and in part by your contributions and the vigorous discussions you have and the participation of the quality people, it's just, I just want to tell you, and I've been around, I've represented 11 different towns wearing my town attorney hat. This is an extraordinary place. So you can be very proud of what your well-discussed and seriously examined tax dollars are achieving for residents of Groton.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any other
I
questions?
have a question about sector, not the probate.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not that familiar with sector, and it says in its description that it's a federally and state designated legal regional economic development resource. And what I want to know, is it a non-governmental organization, or is it a governmental organization? Quasi? Are we required? Okay.
But and some of what they do is they promote economic development in the region through business. Sorry.
Yes.
They promote economic development in the region through business partnerships, business counseling. They do small loans to businesses. Something that's not quite up to the level of a bank doing the loan. They have a revolving loan fund, and they work very closely with our economic development. They are very tied together.
Okay. And are we required to join, or is that
We're
just?
I don't believe so, but it's very, very worth the money. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Newsom?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Could I trouble you to explain Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments, what we get for the dues we pay for them?
Sure. First of all, transportation grants, they all come out of there. We pretty much have to be a member of that if we want to get grants. They're the Regional Council of Government. It's a public agency formed through, I won't read all that. Let's see. And that's the main thing. They do planning for, if somebody doesn't have their own planner, you can pay their planner to do master plans, that type of stuff. But the bulk of it is regional planning, make sure we all work together, but especially the grants have to flow through them. Matter of fact, we just put in for, Mark Berry just went to present a trail grant the other day through the COG.
All right. No other questions? We have a motion for $134,239 on the floor for regional agencies, account 1007. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? There are 30 people here, and all 30 were in favor. Unanimous. Thank you.
Next account is account 1092, Fire Districts, Pilot, or Payment in lieu of Taxes, on page 188 of your budget book. Account 1092, Fire District Pilot. Motion for $246,000 was made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Hanscom. 6 vote in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Are there any questions on these minutes? Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $246,000 for account 1092, Fire District Pilot.
Adams?
What's up with me? 246. All right, we have a motion on the floor for Fire Districts Pilot, account 1092, $246,000, made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Adams, Representative Adams. Thank you. Are there any questions on this? No? Seeing none, all in favor of this $246,000 for the fire districts, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Is it 30? 30 in favor.
Next account is account 1054, Health and Service Agencies, on page 179. So these were all voted individually.
Yeah, and I would just have you look at the back side of the page that the town clerk sent out, because that has the detail of what the committee voted on. It's the 1005 series. Also Appendix A. 1005-4, excuse me.
So the first account is account 10540, Ledgelight Health District. Motion for $287,983 is made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative McDermott. 6 voted in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll make a motion for $287,983 for account 10540, Ledgelight Health District.
We have a motion on the floor for account 100540, Ledgelight Health District, $287,983, made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Powers, by Representative Powers. I know we have a representative here from it. If anyone has any questions, we have Mr. Mansfield. Director Mansfield. Representative Newsom.
I just want to point out one of the questions that I asked at the meeting was, will they still take your ticks that you pull off of yourself or or anybody else and have them analyzed for Lyme disease? A lot of people don't realize if you get bitten, you can take that tick, Ledgelight, and they will have it analyzed to determine whether or not there's Lyme contamination. So most people don't know that. So just wanted to put that out there. You wanted to talk about some of the other things that you do, sir?
I'll just add, in addition to the tick testing for Lyme disease, we also send it to the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, where they test it for ehrlichiosis and babesiosis. So all 3 of the big tick-borne illnesses. It's not something we do in-house, but we work in partnership with the Ag Station. If you're not familiar with Ledgelight Health District, we're a regional health authority. We cover 10 municipalities in southeastern Connecticut. We were named Ledgelight Health District when it was just the town and city of Groton about 27 years ago. I've been with the district for 22 years. We have a number of core functions that we're responsible for that are under the Connecticut general statutes. Most common one that you hear of is inspecting restaurants. We inspect a lot of license and inspect a number of regulated establishments, food service, daycare, cosmetology, and so forth. We also employ an epidemiologist, a public health nurse, and a large number of health educators who are primarily funded by external funding sources, grants and contracts, and so forth. The largest portion of our funding pie does come from municipal contributions. Our current per capita rate is $7.37, and that is, we're going in our second fiscal year where we've had a 0% increase for our member municipalities, and that's primarily due to the fact that we've added, since I've been director, I'm going into my 5th year, we've added 5 municipalities in southeastern Connecticut, so there's an economy of scale there that's beneficial to all of our residents and all of our municipalities. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and on behalf of our staff and board of directors, we thank you for your continued support.
Representative Miller.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Can you explain to me a little bit? I see that on page 16 of Appendix A, they talk about improving the conditions that support mental well-being, and reduce substance abuse. Can you explain to me what you do for that? I'm sorry, I'm just reading a little bit.
Sure, I know what you're referring to.
So I'm sorry.
As I mentioned, a lot of the programs that we have are supported by external funding. We have received, I believe it's 4 separate grants over the last 2 years to fight substance abuse in our communities. One of the biggest highlights of that program is our Navigator program. So we employ 4 people who work in the community where people suffering from substance abuse issues gather or may congregate. So rather than waiting for those individuals to come to us, we seek them out. We go into the community and try to get them the resources they need so they can get on a better path toward recovery. So that's a highlight.
And that's including the opioid. Are you finding an increase in the opioid? Are you finding an increase of funding or need for funding for the opioid issues?
Yes, there's always a need for increased funding. We've been very successful in writing grants and getting the monies into regional programs to help support the efforts to combat the opioid epidemic. But of course, additional funding is always beneficial.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Representative Newsom, did you have your hand up?
No, thank you. All set.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor, seeing no other hands, for $287,983 for account 10540, Ledgelight Health District. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries, but we've lost a few people. 29. What? 29? 29 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Director Mansfield.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next account is 10541 VNA School Health. Visiting Nurse Association. Motion for $1,081,278 made by Representative Hanscom, seconded by Representative Newsom. 6 vote in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, Madam Moderator, I'll make a motion for $1,081,278 for account 10541 VNA School Health.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for $1,081,278 for account 10541 VNA School. And that was made by Representative Newsom, and it was seconded by Representative Martin. And we have Director Mary Lanzini. Who's
No.
Oh?
I'm sorry, I'm Leah Hendricks. I'm supervisor of the
I got
school
bad
health department.
information. I just-
That's all right. That's all right. Mary couldn't be here tonight.
That's fine. Sorry. Thank you for joining us. Are there any questions? Representative Newsom.
Could you just give a brief overview of what services you provide?
Certainly. This is school health that we're talking now. So we cover the, we provide nurses and school health aides in all of the public schools in Groton, and also Sacred Heart. The nurses are placed there based on the requests of the Board of Ed, you know, on the acuity level of the students, the population, and they provide the health and wellness services, taking care of the ill children, the medication management, the management of chronic diseases among children. Are there any specific questions that you have about that?
So this is flat funded from last year, is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
Services have remained the same, so, in all the schools. We haven't been asked by the Board of Ed to adjust anything this year.
Yeah, but one would think that like salaries might increase within that.
Right, yes, it was flat funding across the board.
Yeah, Madam Moderator, I just had a couple of other
Representative
things.
Newsom?
Counseling, screening, first aid, lice outbreaks, and this, but not a school-based clinic. They don't provide the nurses for that. And Groton, New London split one nurse.
They do. We have a float nurse that is shared between Groton and New London. And that nurse is, she provides services for when a school gets exceptionally busy, such as during times of screenings, if the nurses need to attend 504 PPT meetings for special medical conditions, you know, when you need somebody in the health room. One could go to the meeting, the other one can be in the health room. Sometimes it's just a very busy time. At the beginning of the year, the float nurse is very busy because we have the incoming students. There's a lot of transition in Groton with the military, and that takes a lot of tracking and management of the new medication issues that come in. Groton gets a large number of medically fragile children from the military. This is a very, they do tend to send a lot of their ill children to this area. We had an in-service about that a number of years ago, and it was, I didn't even realize it myself, but the services are very good. And we take care of those children with G-tubes, with many diabetics, many seizure disorders. We have children that are, sadly, are not going to make it to adulthood. And we have them in our schools. They need a lot of care.
Would you also provide nurses for field trips for those same
We
children?
do, but that is not included in the routine budget. That is a special letter of agreement per se that we do with the Board of Ed when they request a nurse. The only time nurses need to go on field trips is if a child is going that has a special treatment that cannot be performed by the teachers or a paraprofessional, or if a parent is not able to go. If a parent's able to go, and we always ask them if they would like to, if a parent can go, we don't need to send a nurse. But if you have a diabetic who, for instance, who is unstable or who needs insulin administered by injection, we can't assign that to anyone. We can assign a lot. We have paraprofessionals and teachers who are given medications, rectal medications for students who are having seizures. We're able to teach that. We are able to teach teachers to administer glucagon, which is a situation where a child's blood sugar could drop and they could quickly go into a vegetative state if they're not taken care of right away. And we are allowed to teach the teachers and the paraprofessionals to give that medication. And then the nurse doesn't need to go on the trip. We strive for that, but we realize there are a lot of variables to consider. You have to consider the ability of the person going, the large number of classes. We look out over the safety of the child.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Representative Washington?
Do any of your nurses travel back and forth to school with the student? And also, who determines the care that the students need? Do you do that, or does the school tell you?
The care that the student needs is done between the nursing staff and the medical provider for that student. We currently do not travel on the buses with the students, but that is always a possibility. Should a student have a medication order, for instance, for that medication I was talking about for seizures, and there was no one to teach. And the reason I say that is because teachers and paraprofessionals have to be willing to be taught these medications. So if there was no one, we would have to send a nurse. Fortunately, we don't need to do that right now. But that would be a separate budget as well, because our hours are for when school is in session. The school's responsible for the student from pretty much from when the student steps on that bus until the student steps off that bus. So if there's an order for a medication that needs to be given to that student during the day, we have to have a safe plan in place so that that student is protected from the time they step onto that bus. So either someone has been taught, a paraprofessional, or usually on the bus, or it's possible that doctors will write that if the nurse is not available on the bus, just call 911. We strive for that because that's extra funding. Because if school starts at, say, 9 o'clock in Groton, and the child gets on the bus at 8:15, you need somebody for that 45 minutes, and that's beyond our contract.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Was there a hand up that I missed? Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Can you just explain again, maybe John, how, so the school doesn't pay for this, so the town pays for this first, and then the school reimburses, or I'm trying to remember from last year.
We just pay directly for it. It's never been in the Board of Ed budget. I can't give you the history on it. It's always been in our budget. And I'd rather keep it out of MBR anyway, so it's best to keep it here.
So this is just some type of a long-standing agreement that's been made
Yeah.
years ago that we don't know where it came from.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The town clerk has a question.
I'm just curious because medical treatments and administering of medicine and so forth seems to me is reimbursable by insurance companies, not, private insurance or provider insurance, not through public funds.
I don't, I know there is a method in the schools for reimbursement. I believe the students need to be under Husky. I believe they need to be special services, special ed, but we don't get involved with that. That would be a very good question, though, for the Board of Ed.
All right.
Yeah. I do know that some districts do that because some of my nurses because I also cover other districts, and they are trained to input data for reimbursement. But I don't know how much Groton is involved with that.
Are there home well checks also for Groton residents in this particular budget, or is that a different one?
I think that's the other item, isn't it?
We do have our wellness budget, but the school nurses are allowed to go to the homes if needed for home checks. Usually it's only has been done if there has been a case of lice in the home that is just difficult to manage, and then the nurse will go and help them to try to clean up, and they may miss something.
Great.
It's a shame, but nurses are synonymous with lice. What can I say?
Representative Washington.
Can we just ask the town manager to talk to the Board of Education to see if we are getting any reimbursement?
Yes.
Because that's been a question for years. Does the medical plans reimburse the Board of Ed? So maybe you could find that out for us.
Representative Perry.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I understand some schools, are there duplicate services? Because some schools have school-based health centers, correct?
They do, and I'm glad you asked that because I get asked that question a lot. The school-based health center practitioners are advanced practice nurses. They have a different scope of practice than we do. They are not replacements for the school nurse or vice versa. They are APRNs, and they are able to act as a medical provider, which helps the students stay in school. They can do the physicals as the doctors can, and also write prescriptions. Say a child goes in, their ear hurts, they see that they have an infection brewing, they can start them on the antibiotics. Nurses can't do that. You get the first line of defense.
Right. And so they're able to do physicals, and so aren't you. So
we do not.
You do not do physicals.
No. It does say on the physical form that it could be performed by a registered nurse, but that's totally false.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor for $1,081,278 for account 10541, which is VNA School Health. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. We have 29 in favor, none opposed, one abstention. That motion carries. Thank you. Well, go to the next one.
Count 10542, Visiting Nurse Association Health Promotion. Motion for $33,824 was made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Strode. 6 voted in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstained. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $33,824 for account 10542, Visiting Nurse Association Health Promotion.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for account 10542 VNA Health for $33,824 made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative Adams. Thank you. Are there any questions on this budget item? Representative Newsom?
So my understanding is this is primarily for clinics at the senior center, for health education, also for indigent care.
Yes, that is correct. We used to do flu clinics, but that has cut back because there are so many in stores and pharmacies, so that was pulled back. We do blood pressure clinics. We do what we call nurse-managed clinics, where clients, residents can just come in and talk to the nurse, go over medications with them, review perhaps specific diets that they are on. We have one here at the senior center. The blood pressure clinics, we are at Wyndham Falls, we're at Pequannock Village, we're here at the senior center. It's very popular, especially here. We do provide foot care clinics, and then we also participate in your health and wellness promotion here. We give lectures, anything to promote health and wellness in the residents of Groton. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? And are those the indigent are those that can't be reimbursed? Are the seniors?
Correct.
Do they ever get reimbursed or no?
Any residents in town that do not have insurance or any other type of funding, we use the town funds as a last resort for people who need health care at home.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. We have a motion for $33,824 on the floor. This is for account 10542 VNA Health Promotion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Are we 29? 30?
We have 30, yeah.
So that motion passes, 29 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you want to do these or take a break now? I don't know, we have people waiting, I'm trying to plow through until, if I know people probably want to take a break, but I see a crowd of people like anticipating our next Groton ambulance. They've been standing there for a while.
We need the same break that it.
5-minute break.
5-minute break? Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break. Please try to keep it to 5 minutes.
Count 10543, Groton Ambulance. Motion for $52,976 was made by Representative Hanscom, seconded by Representative Strode. 6 voted in favor. McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $52,976 for account 10543, Groton Ambulance.
So we have a motion on the floor for account 10543, Groton Ambulance, $52,976, made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative Powers. We have someone, a representative from the ambulance, if we have questions? Representative Newsom?
Could we talk about the condition of the building and the work that you guys have done?
Sure. The town has actually been working with us a lot to make the needed improvements. We've gone through every room in the building, repaired the falling ceilings, painted the walls. They came in and put new flooring in because we had a leaking roof, so we were getting mold in the carpet. Our members were getting sick. A lot of things that have been going into the building. We've worked really well with the town. We've actually entered into a lease with the town, so we pay rent, so we're officially lease people. But we've really improved our relationship with the town, and Bob Charette's people have been great, and there's a huge improvement. I would invite all of you down to take a tour of the building and see the improvements. Preferably not all at the same time. But no, we're very proud of our building and the improvements that we've made over the past year.
that the right number? Yes. Okay. Yeah, the town manager's was different.
That's the same number that we had last year. There's been a
Okay.
0% increase in
Okay,
that.
so the town council added to that then. Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thanks for your service to the town. I appreciate all your efforts in the town and what you do for the community. I do think it's great that you are now in a lease agreement. That was one of the things I was questioning last year. I think it was like $1 before, and I said, if you guys weren't going to pay that, I was going to move in. But I think it's fair, in order to maintain that building, which it's our building, I think it's only fair that a rent is being paid so that we can help to sustain the building. And so I think that's great, and so I could support that number this year much more easily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Washington?
How much do you pay a month?
What? How much do you pay? Was that the question?
Yes.
For rent?
It's not broken down by month. It's a yearly lease. We negotiated with the town for the first year, it was $1. The second year is $1,000, and the third year is $2,000.
Thank you. And I just want to commend your organization. In August, I fell off my bike and I broke my hip. And April and Mike, they came to my house. They took great care of me. I was in excruciating pain. And I just want to thank you for the work that you do. Because at that point, when my hip was broken, I really needed some TLC, and they gave it to me.
We specialize in TLC. But all kidding aside, Groton Ambulance is the busiest 911 ambulance service on the east side of the state. We do more calls than New London Fire Department does. We also have improved our service over the last year. We now staff 2 ambulances 24/7, 365 a year. So we answered over 5,600 calls last year alone. So we are one of the busiest ambulance services, and for the amount of money that we receive from the town residents are getting a tremendous service at a tremendous value.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a number on the floor, $52,976 for account 10543, Groton Ambulance. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously, 30 in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
31 in favor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Account 10545, Service Agencies. Motion for $62,500 was made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Hanscom. 6 voting in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. $62,500 was the council number. Are there any questions on the minutes? I'd like to make a motion for $62,500 for account 10545, Service Agencies. Is there a second?
It could have been Adams, could have been the White House.
All right, we have account 10545, Service Agencies, and we have a motion on the floor for that at $62,500, made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Adams. Representative Washington?
I see that the town manager's number was different. Would you like to tell us, Manager Burke, why you cut that number, the original number?
One of the things the council had asked me earlier to do as I went into the budget season is look at opportunities for saving money, for making cuts. So we tried a couple of things last year. Since it wasn't, they're not core town business, I was looking at weaning them off somewhat. So, and partly to just get discussion going. You know, I hear a lot from people, you need to cut. So it's, you know, okay, let's look at it and see, you know, what people think we should cut.
Representative Washington, sorry.
White House.
White House, sorry. See, I just.
I know.
No, one minute, it really is the W, okay?
Yep. First, I agree with the idea of what you did, cutting for the purpose of discussion, 'cause it put things in great perspective of what it would take to, get to the perfect zero, and I think it formed a very good discussion in the budget process. So what we have in the budget book on page 180 adds up to $49,596, and so there's an additional $13,000 added in, but I don't know that, were we given a summary of what was added back in?
Appendix, well,
Your original, the first set of numbers that I sent out had it, but it didn't carry over.
yeah, it doesn't
I'm
have
looking at my
it.
notes from the from the town cow meeting.
Yeah.
57,607 for the committee amount, plus 1,000 for sexual assault, plus 3893 for the symphony.
And if you want, in Appendix A, that's the descriptions of those service agencies.
Okay, so if we take what's on page 180 and in the recommended by committee column and just add those two numbers, that's
Right, the adding in 1,000 for the sexual assault, 3893 for the symphony, Eastern Connecticut Symphony.
Okay, so those are only changes. Everything else is as it appears here.
As the committee list.
All right, thank you very much.
Is this committee composed of old Groton folks?
It's got Marge, Human Services, runs it. I forget who all, it changes a little bit. There's always a police officer on it, there's a planning department. There's different departments represented on there that discuss the requests. We get written requests and then they hash them over and make a recommendation.
Is there anyone from the town on it, who lives in the town?
Well, Marge lives in the town.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, department, several town employees.
Any residents is what I guess I'm
No,
asking.
it's an internal, just
As
on our
a-
budget purposes,
Okay.
right?
Thank you. Representative Richards? Did you have your hand up?
Same question.
Okay. Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm just a little confused why the symphony orchestra, even though I'm in full support of the arts and music department, I'm having trouble. I see that the number was 5,000 before for the symphony orchestra, went down to 38. Once again, I'd like to see that 5,000, but I'm unclear why it's here. But then we're going to give rape crisis, sexual assault crisis only 1,000. I have a little trouble with that, so I don't know if anybody could explain why this Eastern Connecticut Symphony is under here, but not under the same line maybe with the water taxi. I guess the water taxi could be here too. I don't know, it's just a little confusing just for transparency purposes. It seems like this should be funded by the school. 3,800 is not really a lot. I'd like to see, it makes sense for that to be funded by the school and take that 3,800 and give it to some of these other outside agencies where we're suffering in the community. We have an increase in homelessness, we have drug addiction, sexual assaults, gun violence. The symphony orchestra is wonderful, but I think the 3,800 could be used elsewhere. Is there any understanding as to why the symphony, where that came from?
Well, the mayor brought it up as part of this last year. I'm trying to think if they'd been funded before that. The mayor kind of championed it last year and then again this year. It's basically just an outside agency request, so it was brought up during this.
We actually put it back in this, and it was I'm just going to put her on the spot. It was a motion by Representative Katowski to add that money back in, and it was in this body.
Yes, it was.
And it was, won't say
And they're going to try.
Anyway, that's where it really came from, I'm just saying.
And then they're going to try to fundraise to get to the 5,000 if they can, because at 3,800 they can only do 2 out of 3 grades, I guess. I think they do 6 through 8, and this is enough to do 2 of the grades.
And the Sexual Assault Crisis Center, do other towns fund that at a different level, do we know? Because the Sexual Assault Crisis Center of Eastern Connecticut, it looks like...
They put 1,000 into it. That was an addition by the town council.
Right.
Right. What are other towns? Is this, can you give me a little more background on that?
Not really. They hadn't been, other than they hadn't been funded for a couple of years here by committee recommendation. There's a couple different agencies that provide the same service. I guess that one of the other agencies was thought to provide, kind of be the main one you refer people to, but now it's, as we had a presentation, it seems like they're kind of co-equal, so that was added in, and that's the number the council offered up, so.
And that's a fair number, is $1,000 from this agency?
I'm not
Are they
giving
here?
an opinion on it.
Is anybody here from that agency?
Is anyone here from the Sexual Assault Crisis Center of Eastern Connecticut?
Oh. I just want to make sure that we're funding that at its proper level. Since it hasn't been funded, and now we realize that we should fund it, I just wanted to make sure.
We are really not able to go above the town council here in this, unless, well, we can't go above the town manager, so we're kind of limited here.
Yeah, I just was looking for discussion and notes for next year's budget.
Okay.
So that's, okay.
I mean, I also find it a little galling that salary raises were much higher than what we're giving for homeless people, and so, but that's just me. Representative Kotowski, did you have your hand up? No, just stretching. Representative Washington.
Sorry. I thought that was a good question that Representative Borderline asked, but I don't think the town manager answered that. Why isn't the symphony number in the Board of Education budget?
Like I said, I think they had been funded years, but it's just another historic thing. It's been in here, and then when this came
Can
up
we
last year,
encourage them to put it in their budget? I'm going to hear you say that if it's historic. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Can you encourage them to put it in their
Well,
budget?
the only thing is, I don't encourage anything that increases MBR. So you can encourage. I don't ever encourage that.
A wise man. Representative Bordelon.
I'm sorry, this Human Services is my, I just, once again, still have trouble with the numbers, looking at the town and just looking at what we do. We're giving the fire department $2,000 a year rent, or up to eventually from $1. We're giving, we just passed a 77, I don't have the numbers in front of me, budget for the Board of Ed, which I'm sure they can squeeze in $3,800 on that budget we just passed them, which is 68% of the town's total budget that we vote on. I have trouble with that number. I'd like to see that 38. I mean, I know we can't do anything tonight, but I'm just putting it on the record for next year, so it's not missing. It's in my notes, because I plan on coming back in November. But I just feel that that should be, that $3,800 wouldn't change the MBR if the school would absorb that with their extra fundings on their field trips, and that $3,800 then could go into these other categories, because right now, the people who need these services are the ones that aren't getting into it. Beds are filled, places and agencies are maxed out, and our community needs this. We talk about the poverty levels in this town being so dynamic. We had Groton Long Point here rallying for all that money for Groton Long Point, and they were stating how they pay the highest taxes. Well, there's people that can't pay that and need these services, and so I just can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that we're funding that. And I wish some of the other agencies were here to speak on any of these accounts. Is anybody here from any of these open agencies? Are you willing to talk about your account? Which agency are you from?
That's not under this.
I don't think anyone's here from them.
I'm looking for like Meals on Wheels, any of these guys?
No one's here.
No one's here. And is there a reason that they don't, can we get them to come next year as well?
That's not under me.
Oh, they was today?
I'm sorry?
The Symphony gentleman who's the president of the Symphony organization, he was here. Did he leave?
He was in the back.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw him.
Did he leave?
He was a
Okay.
young guy.
Yeah, young
So
guy.
can we in future have, just have people attend or ask them, are they invited?
They are invited.
Point of order, Madam Moderator.
Representative
Listen, if we
Newsom.
want to take this money, and put this in the Board of Ed budget, Representative Bordelon, you need to go to the Board of Ed and tell them they need to pick up the tab. We can't put that on them. Okay, so that's where that focus has to be. Right now, we're focusing on the number on the floor.
I feel like I was advocating for this line, and I feel like I'm speaking in full realm of my right to say that I have trouble with it and that it should be looked at next year.
Okay.
And so I understand this is in front of us, and because it is in front of us, I'm stating that I feel that $3,800.
You did say that. You said it, and everyone here heard that.
Right, but his comment to me, I feel, was targeted and unwarranted when I was advocating for my community and the services that people need in this town. And so I'm speaking to it, and I understand we can't move the number, but what I was stating is that I would like it to be
Please,
researched. Thank you.
Representative Bordelon, you can sit now. Thank you. Representative Kachowski, we'd like to get done.
Could I add
Oh,
that?
Mr. Byrd has
I was going
something
to
to
add
respond.
that. I was looking back in the appendix A under the request. The Sexual Assault Crisis Center only requested $1,000, so they got their full requested amount.
Representative Kachowski.
I was just going to make a point of clarification. During the town council deliberations, I believe that organization is in Willimantic. And there was a closer crisis center that we fund to a higher level, and that's why that's only at $1,000.
Safe Futures is the closer
right.
one, I believe.
Yeah.
Right, you're right. Thank you for that clarification. All right, is there any more comments, thoughts? Does someone want to make an amendment to this number? Seeing none, I would say let's vote on it. There's a number of $62,500 on the table for account 10545, which is service agencies. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 31 in favor, none opposed. Thank you.
The next account is account 10547, marine sewage disposal. Motion for $19,980 made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Newsom. 6 voting in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $19,980 for account 10547, marine sewage disposal.
Who's that? That's Adams, yeah. And Mr. Chapman.
All right, we have a motion on the table for account 10547, marine sewage disposal, for $19,980 made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Adams, was it? She's our second woman. That's good. Thank you.
I think she's the first.
The first second woman. All right.
Any questions on the pump out vote?
Representative Bordelon?
This is Marianne.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you for coming. I believe this is another great service. Last year we were talking and we asked if you could possibly bring numbers. I know that Stonington also pays. How much does Stonington pay for this service?
Well, Stonington, they didn't pay much last year.
Yeah.
And when you say not much, what would you say?
I think it was $1,700, $1,500, something like that. This year, I worked really close with the Harbor Commission, and they did a study, and they realized that they should be paying equal to what Groton's paying. They put it in the budget. It got cut out of their budget. Then there was money put back in, then there was money taken out, and I'm not sure. I think there was some money in there. I haven't heard officially. I had heard a number of $5,000, but I have not heard whether, I know their budget passed, but I don't know officially what the number was. I haven't heard officially.
Right, and I feel this is a great service because if we don't have the pump system like you had stated, people will pump right into the water, which I think is careless. But I feel that at some point we can't carry all the weight of every other town. Stonington has way more boats, from what I've read, coming through, and they're funding maybe a quarter, if approved, of not even.
Stonington has 20 more boats on the Mystic River than Groton does on the Mystic River. But you're talking just about the Mystic River. Groton also has Pine Island Bay and the Thames River. So there is more boats in Groton than the Stonington area that we service, because we only service the Stonington side of the Mystic River. We don't go around to like Dotson's Boatyard over in Stonington Harbor. We don't service that area.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, I'm happy that you're trying to fight for more funds, because I do think that they should pay their part. So, thank you.
So you do the Thames River, and where else did you say in Groton?
Pine Island.
Pine Island Bay.
Pine Island Bay. And there, I know, I actually live near there, and I know that the last marina had a pump out. I'm just surprised that you have to come in there, because I thought the yacht club and the marina had their fixed pump outs.
The yacht club has a pump station there, and we actually discharge our boats at their station. The issue is, most of the pump stations are at fuel docks, so it's not real convenient for people to pull in. If they're coming in, they have to wait in line for people to get fuel, and then, you know, sometimes it takes a long time for some of these boats to fill up. It can take 45 minutes for a boat to fill up with fuel. So if you're sitting at the, you know, it's not always convenient, and it's very convenient to call a pump out boat, make a reservation online, and we show up on Sunday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, pump them out, and the boat's ready for them for the weekend.
Would it be possible, I know I asked this last year, I mean, it would be nice, I think, to know the number of boats totally that are serviced between Stonington and Groton, so that at least we could assess a fee and maybe write a letter at the RTM level, since that's what we can control. But maybe the town council could do it to the town. You know, just if we had that data, it would be nice.
If I can remember, and I don't have the number in front of me, unfortunately, but I think it was like 5,800 boats in the Mystic River.
Total.
Total.
And so then it's like, you know, just 20 more that
Yeah,
are
there was really, really close, the numbers, give or take 10 or 15 boats on between Stonington and Mystic. It was really close.
And is your total cost 40,000? Like, is your total budget 40,000? I don't see that here.
No. Our total budget is 192,000.
And then how much is rebated by the state?
75%.
75%? So you eat the cost that Stonington's not paying then?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. We have a number, any other questions? No. Sorry, this is always irksome to me.
Me too.
We have a number of $19,980 on the floor for account 10547, which is marine sewage disposal. And all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries, 31 in favor, none opposed. Thank you so much, Mr. Chappell.
Thank you. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it.
Next account is account 10548, Mystic River Ambulance. Motion for $25,000 is made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Hanscom. 6 vote in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. $25,000 was last year's number, and it was also the number approved by the town council. So, Madam Moderator, for account 10548, Mystic River Ambulance, I'd like to make a motion for $25,000.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor for Mystic River Ambulance, account 10548, for $25,000 made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Monahan. Any questions? We have Representative Powers.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, I know you probably get a lot of calls. Do you know the number?
We answered approximately almost 2,500 calls last year,
And how
calendar
many,
year.
How many ambulances do you have?
We have four, and we own 4 ambulances, but we keep one as a backup.
I looked in the budget book here, and you requested what, 37.5?
Yes.
What was the reason given for the cut?
For the cut?
Yeah, for them to.
Oh.
John, I'm sorry.
Well, it's the current, what do they have this year, so it's keeping it flat.
So it's a flat level that we're doing. How are the reimbursements for services?
There are different rates. You have the state rate, which is $726, and Medicare is half of that, and Medicaid is half of that. So last year in Groton, we did not collect $789,000.
That's what you were out at the end of the year.
Yep, so if you have private insurance, and we can bill the full rate, the state of Connecticut actually, it's statute that we collect the full rate on private insurance. On Medicare, because it's federal, Medicaid is state, that they set their own rates, so those we bill at the Medicare rate or the state rate, and we can't, by law, collect, bless you, the difference.
Okay, Madam Moderator, I'd like to move another number. I'd like to put restore the money? 37.5, please. I can't do it?
I don't think we can because we can't go above the,
Town
either the
council
town
or-
council or the manager. The
Okay.
manager's even
All right.
lower, so
Thank you.
we can only go down. Thank you.
And by the way, my name is Michael Gilman. I'm the president of the association.
Thank you, Mr. Gilman.
And for full disclosure, I am a town of Groton employee up at the police department.
Thank you. Representative Bordelon, did you have your hand raised?
So for the Mystic Ambulance, you cover the Groton and the Stoughton side, I assume?
Yes, we cover from Flanders Road all the way to Cove Road in Stonington.
Okay. And you guys also have a rent that you pay for your building?
No, we own our own building.
You own your own building?
Yes.
Very nice. Thank you.
All right, seeing no hands up, we have $25,000 on the floor for Mystic River Ambulance, 10548 account. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gilman. That's 31 in favor.
Thank you very much. Next account is account 10549, Mystic Nointh Library. Motion made for $115,000, made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Strode. 6 vote in favor, McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 0 opposed, 0 abstained. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $115,000 for account 10549, Mystic Nointh Library.
We have a motion on the floor for Mystic Noank Library, account 10549, made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Gustafson for $115,000.
No, it was Adams. Sorry.
No, I saw Representative Gustafson.
Oh.
Yeah, he definitely made it. Sorry. He was fast on the trigger this time. Representative Monahan.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Looking at the budget summary, it appears to me you're running at a deficit, correct?
That's correct.
And to be upfront here, we had a conversation during the break, so I'm just sort of going to run through some of these questions really quickly.
And just so we know, we can't make a motion to increase this. All right.
I was just going to,
You can go. I just want to put that out there.
I think you anticipated, right, okay. But for next year, it's fair to say that the budget that was originally budgeted by the town several years ago was a mistake, right? You indicated that you were funded at a level of about $180,000.
I believe 3 years ago it was at 183,000 and change, and then 2 years ago an incorrect number was moved out of committee and it went to 122.
And so
A drop of $60,000.
And so what your budget indicates is that you have been trying to make up the difference. You have to make up your difference by monies from the interest on the endowment, right?
That's correct, and fundraising.
And at some point, if you're not able to keep up with expenses, you end up, if you have to start going into the endowment, then basically you're on a path toward not being able to be funded, right?
That's correct. We have a very strict rule of not touching the principal. We have a 5% rule, and right now because the funding model of roughly 30% from the towns, the state, fines and fees, 30% from fundraising, and 30% from investment drawdown. If one of those things gets knocked out of kilter significantly, which happened with the $60,000 drop a couple of years ago, you either make it up somewhere else or you make cuts. So we've been working to do more fundraising, get more grants, and so we've been able to, maintain our hours without making cuts in hours and staff, but we can't continue to sustain that. State aid, all indications are that our state aid is going to decline as well, unfortunately. So
just to be brief, because there's no point in continuing on too much more, but I'd say that before there was Google, there was a reference librarian, and the reference librarian wasn't quite as fast as Google is, but it also doesn't come with advertisements, and probably our kids will not even understand what a reference librarian is. But the town manager's statement in the beginning of his budget, he was talking about we can't make cuts to positions without dramatically reducing or eliminating services. A prosperous town cannot be achieved solely by continually cutting costs, no matter what the impact. Without parks, libraries, and other similar services, the town will suffer and never realize its full potential, but we will also cannot continue to afford to provide services in the manner that we have. And so for next year, folks, we can't cut libraries. We just can't. They are essential to who we are. And I understand, you know, this guy has people all the time telling him cut, cut, cut. But the reality is we need certain services to be a great community like Judge Keppel mentioned. And if we cut libraries, we won't be a great community.
Thank you. Representative Gustafson?
Thank you. At this number, do you foresee the hours being affected in the coming year?
At the 115?
Yes.
No.
Okay, that's good. I'm a big supporter of the libraries. I fully support this number. I would support more. I don't think you can put a value on what libraries offer the community. I'm such a big supporter, I think I'm going to open up my own line item, my own budget for all the late fees we pay for the movies and the books my kids take out, but I don't mind that. Like I said, I think it's an invaluable resource, and we definitely should fully fund it, hopefully more so next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands raised, Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you. I support libraries as well. I'm just curious, I know a lot of your foot traffic that comes through is also Stonington. And what is Stonington funding this year?
That was set at level funded at 86.5 this year.
86.5.
It's been 86.5 for the past several years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Washington?
At the town council meeting, I'm on page 97 in Appendix A, and at the town council meeting, the 25,000 for the CEN line and the 15,000 for the HVAC, they took that out because you got funding for that elsewhere. Is
That's
that correct?
right. I took that out of my request because I was able to secure a grant for a CEN is Connecticut Education Network. Pardon me. That's to bring high-speed fiber optic internet service to the library, which I think is crucial, and it also meets one of our strategic goals of providing the community with the latest technology. We have a lot of people in the building using our computers and Wi-Fi and groups coming in to use the smart board and things of that nature, so it's all internet-based. We did secure a grant for that, so I was really pleased about that, so I pulled that out. And we also secured a grant for the HVAC repairs as well, so far. It's a 125-year-old building, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So that reduces your request a little bit anyway.
Well, the initial request was in the 170s, and then there was the 25,000 for the CEN line and 17 and change for the HVAC repairs. And then I put a small amount of money in there for cost of living increases because our staff hasn't had any increases at all in over 2 years, and they're paid well below the Connecticut Library Association minimum recommended salary. It's around, for a professional entry-level librarian, it's around $27 an hour, and ours are paid well below that. So I put a small amount in there for that. So, thank you.
All right, seeing no more hands raised, I believe we have a number for $115,000 for account 10540, and this is the Mystic Noank Library. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes 29 in favor, no opposed, 2 abstentions. Thank you very much.
Next account is 10549A, Bill Memorial Library. Motion for $25,000 made by Representative Newsom, seconded by Representative McDermott. 6 vote in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstained. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion, $25,000 for account 10549A, Bill Memorial Library.
Streeter.
All right, we have an motion on the floor for account 10549A, Bill Memorial Library, made by Representative Newsom for $25,000 and seconded by Representative Streeter. We have some representatives of the library here, if anyone has any questions.
Just introduce
Mrs. Frucht, sure.
Good. This is Rob Zuliani, our treasurer, and our director, Wendy Connell.
And this is our president, Barbara Frucht.
Well, she knew.
Any questions? So can I know, I think that the 25,000 that you've been raised to at this point is the request to the town, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, any other questions? Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I think it's great that you guys are coming in at 25,000. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys come up with the other funds and stuff to make it such, I think that's a reasonable request, and you guys, that's not asking a lot. I mean, we do have 3 libraries in the town, and I support all 3, but at some point, and you have no other towns that are funding this library except for Groton.
I'd love to speak to the money.
Okay, thank you.
As Representative Newsom indicated on the budget book, we're on page 179, but we're also in the appendix.
Yep.
102 to 106 is the detail. I handed out a two-sided page quick report that I wanted to just briefly review with you. The first part is our actual budget summary for the last year. And you can see we're the smallest of the 3 libraries. We're the little grunt. Most of our income comes from our portfolio. That represents the income and the market growth that we receive every year. Unfortunately, we're trying to stay away from principal. You know what happens when you go into principal. Future income is lost, and if you continue to do that, the library's lost. We're struggling to keep above that. We're trying to build ourselves, but it's a slow process. You can see the second line on that report is the town grant. That represents 9.5% of our funding. We really rely on that money. And then we have other fundraising and the community foundation grants. So basically, we're about a $250,000 operation. The basic part of that is pretty much funding the library operations. $200,000 keeps everything going. It pays for staff, it keeps the buys for books, materials, technology, and so forth. And that's the bulk of our operations functions. Building and grounds represents about a little over $23,000. And then, as you can see below, there's smaller categories. So basically, we try to stay within budget. I got to tell you, last year we were under budget by $1,000. We hit it almost right on the nail. It was very good. Now, if you turn over to your back side of that page, the purpose of us asking for a $2,000 increase over last year, and this is my explanation. We are doing more grants than we have done in prior years. And you can see these grants have just recently been approved. I'll go to the very bottom with the Neighborhood Assistance Act grant. This is for our new HVAC system. When this is completed, we're going to save close to $5,000 in oil every year. That is future money that we can take advantage of. As you can see, the grant request, the almost $78,000, is what we'll receive in grant money, but they don't always come free. There's always you need more money to kick in what the total grant should be. So the middle section is the library's cost. These are funds that were above and beyond our budget, our budgeted program. These are extra activities that are not planned until the grant comes through. So we're going to come up with about another $19,000 out of our fundraising savings account to fund these grants ourselves. So to get $100,000, almost $97,000 worth of grants, the library's going to have to spend 19. My pitch to you, it was to the town council and it was to the RTM committee. We are asking the town's help to fund this 19. That's why we're asking for $2,000 over last year. We need a little help to keep these grants, and we need your assistance, and that's why we're here. We'd love to entertain any questions.
Representative Stevenson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. I just want to inform I am on the Board of Trustees for the library, so I'll be abstaining from this vote. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Kay Powers, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. So we have Representative Massett, and you want to declare yourself too?
I am also on the board of directors, but I think because I don't gain anything monetarily, I can vote on this, can't I?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have a financial interest, I think that it passes the smell test.
I just want to be careful, so.
That's good to declare things. That's good. That's best practices. Yes, it was. Representative Whitney?
I think I may be correct that the Mystic Noack Library, we just funded 16% of their operating expenses, and you're asking for 10%. I know we can't go above the number you're asking, but I think if you came back next year with a higher number, I, for one, would support it.
We could find other reasons to fund it next year.
But they also have smoother sailing. Anyway, I don't see any other hands raised. So we have a number of $25,000 on the floor for account 10549A, which is the Bill Memorial Library in the city of Groton. All in favor of $25,000, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously, 31 in favor. Thank you all so much for coming and staying so late.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I do want to note it's the witching hour for our body. We still have things on our agenda.
So what I would say is we only have 5 more accounts to vote on.
Could we please have a show of hands of who would like to finish out our agenda for this evening? Who would like to break right now? Okay, I think we can go forward, thank you. We had a majority in favor of staying and working
Try to
through
make it quick. Next one's account 1, is account 1051, Human Services. That is on page 140 of your budget book. Account 1051, Human Services, motion for $580,650, made by Representative Strode, seconded by Representative Perry. 6 voted in favor, McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $580,650 for account 1051, Human Services. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions on account 1051?
All right, so we have a motion on the floor for Human Services, account 1051 for $580,650, and that was made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Adams. And are there any questions? We have Ms. Fondulis here, who is the director of that. Representative Newsom?
You, in the committee meeting, you talked about you had a few staffing changes.
Can you come up, talk into the microphone?
Sorry. During the committee meeting, we talked about some of the staffing changes that she'd had. I wanted her to elaborate on them.
We had a full-time counselor who retired as of April of this year. And I thought it was a good opportunity at that point to do some restructuring in the department. I did want to fill that full-time position, but I thought it was an opportune time to eliminate a part-time counselor position. The new full-time counselor will be primarily, as in about 75% funded for youth and family services and 25% for family support services, primarily so that we can continue some programs that we run that are very well received in the community. So the savings in the department are primarily because of the elimination of that part-time position. I've also felt over the years, we've had the part-time position for about 9 or 10 years, and I've felt over the years that much as I value and respect and appreciate the person who was in the position, I felt that the part-time position of 2.5 days a week was somewhat disruptive as far as not having someone there a full 5 days. And so I'm really looking forward to having all staff members be full-time and be there 5 days a week.
Representative Chase.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. A couple of questions that came up when I went to the town council meeting is you get referrals from schools. Why don't the school counselors take care of children?
The schools, some of the schools do have school-based health centers, and they do provide counseling, but there are some students that they cannot accommodate for various reasons in their counseling centers at school, largely, I think, because they are maxed out. But also there are some situations that they feel are best handled by a community-based center such as ours.
Okay, and everyone has to have insurance in today's world. Do you take insurance?
There is no cost for the counseling that we provide.
Right, but can you take insurance?
No.
Because?
Because we don't charge anything. If we took insurance, that would involve a whole new ballgame, and the whole premise of youth service bureaus is that they operate free of charge to the community for the betterment of the community.
Right, but if someone has insurance, they're not really paying. You just get it from the insurance, and it would help recoup some money?
We don't charge, so we don't get involved with insurance.
All right, thank you.
Representative Stevenson?
No.
No. Any other questions? Thoughts? Seeing none, we have a number for $580,650 on the floor for account 1051 Human Services. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 31 in favor, none opposed. Thank you so much, Ms. Fonda.
Thank you.
All right.
Next account is account 7320, Human Services Assistance Fund on page 144. Motion for $10,000 made by Representative Hanscom, seconded by Representative Strode. 6 voted in favor: McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $10,000 for account 7320, Human Services Assistance Fund.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for account 7320 Human Services Assistance Fund for $10,000 made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Powers, S. Powers, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any questions on this? No. Seeing none, we have $10,000. All in favor of $10,000 for account 7320, the Human Services Assistance Fund, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 31 in favor, none opposed. Thank you.
The next account is account 1063, Groton Public Library, on page 148. Account 1063, thank you very much. Groton Public Library. A motion for $1,600,000 $653,277 made by Representative McDermott, seconded by Representative Strode. 6 voted in favor, McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom, 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $1,653,277 for account 1063, Groton Public Library.
Adams.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for the Groton Public Library, account 1063, made by Representative Newsom for $1,653,277, seconded by Representative Adams. We have someone here to speak with us if we have any questions. The director, the new director.
Yes, my name is Jennifer Mealy. I'm the director of Groton Public Library.
Representative Newsom.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So in this account, Town Council lowered the number because you had 2 positions that were reclassified. Is that the case?
Yes, we did some readjustments in our positions, and we've realized after we put the number that we sent to the town manager, we actually saw cost savings with the realignment. So that's the number as presented today.
And you consider this as a level service budget, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Any other questions? No questions. All right. We have account 1063 on the floor for $1,653,277. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. 31 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. People are getting really happy out there.
There's a couple more to go. Next account is 3310.
What?
On page 152 of your budget book, Barwick, Connecticut. Motion for $18,000 is made by Representative Strode, seconded by Representative Newsom. 6 voted in favor, McDermott, Strode, Hanscom, Perry, Oliver, Newsom. 0 opposed, 0 abstaining. Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion for $18,000 for account 3310, Barwick, Connecticut.
Second.
All right, we have a item on the floor, account 3310, Barwick, Connecticut, for $18,000. Motion made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Powers, S. Powers. Representative Chase?
Just wondering why you cut it $300 in committee?
We just estimated that this was going to be the same as last year's funding, and it's a state-related fund, and it's used for library services, so it's just, we estimated it. Every year it's up for debate if we're going to get it, the funding, and actually we are receiving the funding this year.
No, but I think Representative Chase has an issue, which is that the cut came from the RTM committee.
Right, so.
Is this a mistake?
It is a mistake in the meeting minutes because in my notes, I have $18,300.
Right. It is 18,000.
It's $18,300. So.
18,003?
So I'm going to amend the minutes.
Thank you.
Have the correct number because I recorded it 18,300 when we passed it.
Can we amend that number then? We need
Yes,
to
ma'am.
get the second to accept that.
Oh. My apologies.
Thank you.
All right, we have an amended number on the floor, $18,300. Are there any questions about this? You're familiar with Barwick, Connecticut? Okay, everyone's familiar with it. All right, $18,300 for account 3310, Barwick, Connecticut. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries at $18,300. Thank you.
the last one.
Q. It's 7Q.
Yeah.
7Q. Oh. Did they?
Well.
Seems odd. I don't think they would do it. No, the council passed 77,000. Page 8. Right here. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So,
Did you vote on it?
we voted on it, but it doesn't appear to be in the minutes.
It's not all.
So,
Okay. You were at the meeting.
but I didn't write the minutes.
No, but you can amend the minutes.
I can amend the minutes,
Yes.
and I will. However, right now, I'd like to put a motion on the floor for $77,000 for CIP 7Q, Town Meeting Room AV Presentation Equipment Replacement and Upgrade.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for 77,000 for CIP 7Q, made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Jay Streeter.
So, I ask you guys go ahead and explain your CIP.
Sure. This is really the second year of the meeting room equipment replacement and upgrade. The first year, you're seeing some of the benefit, the brand new microphones. Please, at the last meeting, don't say I just dropped the mic. They're brand new.
Yeah, don't give me ideas.
So this is the second year, and basically we're looking to upgrade all of the meeting rooms in town. We have quite a few of them, particularly the annex being the first year. A lot of meetings happen up there. A lot of presentations happen up there. And we're using very antiquated equipment. We have people that have trouble seeing the presentation, that are coming to the meetings, that are watching them on TV, and more importantly, the people that are participating in the meetings, the council, different boards and commissions. And so really we want to try to upgrade the meetings, the equipment, so we make the meetings run a little bit smoother. It's really about the efficiency of how we're conducting our business in the town using lots of media equipment. Today, everything's got media equipment in it. And so we're really looking in the overall plan to take a few rooms each year and upgrade the equipment. So the first year, this year, or actually the second year, it would entail upgrading CR1, and CR2, and CR3. It does sound like a bit of money to do that, but there's a lot of gear that goes into those rooms. You don't necessarily see it, but and we're missing a lot of stuff too. People come in with laptops that can't connect. We have screens that actually aren't facing the right way. We have counselors that can't hear. We have in CR2 we have a very antiquated audio equipment for recording the meetings. We're legally required to provide recordings in that room, and sometimes they actually don't come out because of the equipment and the type of equipment that's in there. We have a cinder block holding up a audio mixing system, and that is part of your legal record. So we were looking to really kind of straighten out a lot of that equipment. CR3 is not a big room to do, but it's a very important room that staff uses, particularly the economic development staff and planning staff. And sometimes they're trying to do video conferences in there, and they really don't have the equipment to do it. And usually they're using laptops, and that's the first impression that a lot of people are getting of our town, is that they're having people crowd around laptops with little cameras in it. And really, we would like to set up a video conferencing room that they can actually deal with people that are out of state that are looking to come into the town and to do some business. So we're really trying to bring our standards up for audiovisual equipment. And then we're going to look to try to do the same thing for some of the other meeting rooms, including this room, later on in the CIP if you read the plan. So that's really the nuts and bolts of it.
Any questions? Representative Chase?
Did you change the mics up at the annex already?
We changed the wireless microphones. We didn't change any of the hardwired microphones, but they have upgraded we actually just finished installing all of the microphones for wireless in the entire town. So,
Because I watched the town council meeting Tuesday, and I did not have to sit there and listen to static the entire time. It was fabulous.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Any other questions? Representative Newsom?
I know we had extensive discussion on making sure that we have a unified plan for going through all of this audio replacement throughout the town. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah, a lot of times we're buying audiovisual equipment and different people are picking out, or contractors picking out. Really, the plan with the IT and myself, IT, Brian Hancock and I work pretty closely together, particularly with computer and media equipment. There's a very thin gray line. But what we're trying to do is standardize things too, so that when people go into rooms, if you're on a board and commission and they meet in a couple of rooms, we're trying to have the equipment act the same or be similar, so that we train people how to use it once and they go into a different room, they can understand how that, maybe it's set up slightly different, but it'll be very similar. So we're trying to standardize things, how they work, so that we can, again, be more efficient in the way we conduct our business.
All right, seeing no more hands in the air, we have CIP 7Q Town Meeting Room AV Presentation Equipment Replacement Upgrade for $77,000 on the floor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 30 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention.
All right, don't adjourn too quickly because I got to get back and switch us off.
So we still have one more thing to do.
Got to do the minutes.
Madam Moderator, I've amended the minutes for CIP 7Q. So those are ready to go. Basically, motion was made by Representative Oliver, seconded by Representative Newsom. There were 6 voting in favor. Everybody voted unanimously.
Did you amend
no
the
opposed,
minutes
no
for-
abstaining. So I have amended the minutes.
Did you amend the minutes for the Connecticut, the 18-3?
Yes, I have.
Barwick.
It's right there.
Great, thank you.
So
is,
what I would like to do, that is our final count for tonight. What I'd like to do is make a motion to approve the RTM Community and Development Services Committee meeting minutes for Wednesday, April 24th.
so we have a motion to approve the
amended
minutes
meeting minutes. I apologize. Amended meeting minutes.
of the amended meeting minutes of the RTM Community Development Committee. It's made by Representative Newsom and seconded by Representative Martin, sorry. And any discussion? So there were a few amendments made. I think you hopefully heard those by Representative Newsom. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries unanimously. So before we break, I just want to say we're going to reconvene on Monday, and that will be at 7:30 because that's a meeting, dinner night here. So we're going to try to finish up agenda items that we missed the other day, and then really we're slated to finish on the 16th if everything goes well. So please try to be here so we can get a quorum, although we haven't had that issue. And thank you very much for all your fortitude and good humor. And you've been pretty good. Very good. Good job. I need a motion to recess. Thank you. Motion but made by Representative Monahan and seconded by Kay Powers. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? See you Monday.